Germany of Iron and Blood. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 951, Emperor's Roar, Vienna, General Staff of the Austro-Hungarian Army. Caroline came here personally to understand the development of the battle situation. After all, this battle is directly related to the life and death of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, as well as his own destiny. Therefore, he is very concerned about the development of the battle situation. Your Excellency the Grand Duke, Your Excellency the Chief of Staff, I have already contacted the Americans. The Americans said that their navy will set off in the near future to the eastern Atlantic Ocean to cooperate with us in fighting the German navy. As long as our army can hold out for a month, the US Army will appear on the battlefield. You know, the total strength of the US Army has now exceeded 2 million. If mobilization is carried out, the US Army's strength can be further increased. By then, we are likely to defeat Germany. Caroline still looked very optimistic. In Caroline's view, even if the Austro-Hungarian Empire could not beat Germany, but if it persisted for a month, there would be no problem at all. After all, in continental Europe and the whole world, the Austro-Hungarian Empire is the second military power after Germany. However, the expressions of Archduke Friedrich and Baron Marshal Herzendorf were very solemn. They are obviously not very optimistic about this battle. Although, it seems a bit shameful to admit that the Austrian army was not even sure of blocking the German attack for a month. But facts are facts, and must be admitted. What's more, this is related to the life and death of the entire Austro-Hungarian Empire. They didn't know why Caroline agreed to the American request without discussing with them. If they had expressed their affection in advance, they would definitely not agree to the conditions agreed by Caroline. Your Majesty, we will try our best to stop the German attack, Baron Marshal Herzendorf said. In such an extremely unfavorable situation, he didn't dare to guarantee it. After all, this time the enemy is the overlord of the world. Caroline couldn't help frowning, how he wished to hear an affirmative answer. However, Baron Herzendorf's answer was still very conservative, which made Caroline a little dissatisfied. He even made up his mind that after this crisis passed, he must find an opportunity to replace Baron Herzendorf Marshal and replace him with an obedient person. In this way, he can better control the army of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. If you can't even control the army, how can you be regarded as an emperor? Report: the German army has crossed the border and entered our country. A staff officer reported. What? Bastard. Asterisk 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 the Germans. They actually invaded the Austro-Hungarian Empire. We must not let them go so easily. Caroline roared angrily. What is the specific situation? Archduke Friedrich asked. Your Excellency, the German army dispatched 2 armies and entered our border from Bavaria in 2 routes. At present, the German army is marching towards Vienna. In addition, 2 German armies have entered the Kingdom of Bohemia. Staff officer: the officer reported. 4 armies, 800,000 people. The Germans actually mobilized so many troops at once. The expressions of Archduke Friedrich and Baron Marshal Herzendorf became very ugly. Although, the total strength of the German army is undoubtedly more than 2 million. However, excluding the 2 armies that are fighting in Australia, they have been stationed in India and France, as well as the troops on the Eastern European plain. There were not many troops that Germany could use. Now, Germany has used 4 army groups in one move, obviously doing its best. The Austro-Hungarian army wants to defeat the 800,000 German troops. The difficulty may not be ordinary. However, Caroline seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. His Excellency, Grand Duke, Chief of Staff. The Germans only dispatched 800,000 people, and we have an army of 2 million. We will definitely defeat the Germans this time. Caroline said excitedly. The heart that he had been hanging on for a long time finally returned to his stomach at this moment. Your Majesty, although we have 2 million troops, after deducting the troops stationed all over the country, the troops we can use are actually not many, at most only 1.5 million. Even with twice the German army strength, but it may be very difficult to defeat the Germans. Baron Marshal Herzendorf explained. After all, the combat effectiveness of the German army is much stronger than that of the Austro-Hungarian army. Even with nearly twice the force advantage, it may not necessarily be able to win. Karolai frowned suddenly, as if he was a little dissatisfied with the combat effectiveness of the Austro-Hungarian army. In this case, let's mobilize further. We need more troops to defeat the Germans. Within 3 months, we are enough to expand the army from 2 million to 4 million. Karolai said. With a population of 40 to 50 million in the Austro-Hungarian Empire, if mobilization is carried out, there is not much problem in arming an army of 4 million. However, this also takes time. Whether the Austro-Hungarian army can last for such a long time is undoubtedly very difficult to say. At this moment, bad news came. Report: the army of the Kingdom of Bohemia voluntarily let go of the border and surrendered to the Germans. Now, the Germans are driving straight into the Kingdom of Bohemia. What? How could this happen? Everyone, including Karolai, was stunned. They never expected that such a thing would happen just after the battle had just begun. Damn, what does the Grand Duke of Bohemia want to do? Is he going to betray the Empire? Isn't he afraid that the Empire will send him to the gallows? Karolai was very angry. For the first time, he felt that the situation seemed to be out of his control. In other words, it was beyond his control. The faces of Archduke Friedrich and Baron Marshal Herzendorf were also very ugly. The betrayal of the Kingdom of Bohemia undoubtedly caused the Austro-Hungarian Empire to lose almost 1/5 of its strength. The battle has just begun, and so much power has been lost. This makes them how to fight against the Germans next. The bad news is far more than that. Report: the Chief of Staff of the Hungarian Army, Baron Tobers, issued an order requiring all Hungarian troops to stay in the barracks and not to go out. What? Everyone was shocked by this news. Hungary is one of the most powerful states among the many states of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. If the Kingdom of Hungary remains neutral, it will directly cost them more than 1/3 of their strength. Chapter 952. Despair. How could this be? Not only the Bohemians betrayed us, even the Hungarians also betrayed us. What should we do now? Karolai murmured. Now he is like a resentful woman who has been abandoned by a man. He is at a loss and doesn't know what to do. Archduke Friedrich and Baron Marshal Herzendorf both had very ugly faces. If it was just the betrayal of the Kingdom of Bohemia, it might not be a big deal. However, the Kingdom of Hungary also betrayed, which was undoubtedly a fatal blow to the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Without the Kingdom of Hungary, can the Austro-Hungarian Empire be called the Austro-Hungarian Empire? 2 successive kingdoms betrayed the Austro-Hungarian Empire, which directly reduced the strength of the Austro-Hungarian Empire by half. Do they still have a chance of winning this battle? Obviously, that's impossible. The strength of the Austro-Hungarian Empire was originally inferior to that of Germany, and it was much worse. Now, the betrayal of the Kingdom of Bohemia and the Kingdom of Hungary has directly reduced their strength by half. Under such circumstances, unless it is God's manifestation, otherwise, they will lose this battle. Your Majesty, Your Excellency the Prime Minister, Your Excellency the Minister of War, the Minister of Finance, and the Minister of Foreign Affairs have arrived. Before Karolai said anything, Prime Minister Mario Weber, Minister of War Duke Kaspar, Minister of Finance Duke Andras, and Minister of Foreign Affairs Baron Berchtold entered the war room. Your Majesty, we have just received news that both the Kingdom of Bohemia and the Kingdom of Hungary have betrayed the Empire. Is this true? Prime Minister Mario Weber asked. Are you questioning me? They did betray the Empire, but how do I know why they betrayed the Empire? Those shameful betrayers must have been bought by the Germans. After this crisis is over, I will definitely not let them go, Karolai said through gritted teeth. But several military and political ministers disagreed. Now the Austro-Hungarian Empire has lost more than half of its power, and it still wants to survive this crisis safely. How is that possible? If it fails, this time the Austro-Hungarian Empire will face the biggest crisis since its establishment. Once defeated by Germany, the entire Austro-Hungarian Empire may fall apart, let alone continue to exist. Your Majesty, without the Kingdom of Bohemia and the Kingdom of Hungary, we would not be able to resist the Germans at all. I think, at this time, we must make certain concessions. Archduke Friedrich said. Karolai is not a fool. Of course he knows the serious situation he is facing now. Okay, send a telegram to the Grand Duke of Bohemia and the Hungarian government and tell them, as long as they fully cooperate with us to resist the German attack, they will gain greater autonomy. The title of King of the Kingdom of Bohemia can be to the Grand Duke of Bohemia. Even the title of King of Hungary can be given to the Hungarians. As long as they can support us to resist the Germans, everything is easy to talk about. Karolai said through gritted teeth. Although, he knows that, if he does this, the Kingdom of Bohemia and the Kingdom of Hungary will gain greater autonomy, and even break away from the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and become independent again. However, he has no other bargaining chips. The Kingdom of Bohemia and the Kingdom of Hungary were able to betray the Austro-Hungarian Empire, which clearly shows that the Germans have opened enough chips to make their hearts beat. It's hard to convince them if you don't give them what they want. The military and political ministers of the Austro-Hungarian Empire also knew this truth, so they didn't say much and sent a telegram to the Grand Duke of Bohemia and the Hungarian government. Time passed minute by minute amid anxious waiting. Half an hour later, they received replies from the Kingdom of Bohemia and the Kingdom of Hungary. However, their reply made the monarchs and ministers of the Austro-Hungarian Empire completely desperate. Your Majesty, the Grand Duke of Bohemia replied that he had already got what he wanted. He also claimed that this time the empire provoked the German Empire, which is a very unwise and stupid act, and the Kingdom of Bohemia will not be buried with the empire. Bastard. Have they forgotten that the Kingdom of Bohemia and the empire are one? Now, they still want to betray the empire. It is really abhorrent. Karolai cursed. The ministers of the Austro-Hungarian Empire did not know what to say. Obviously, the Germans had reached an agreement with the Grand Duke of Bohemia before declaring war. After the German army defeated the Austro-Hungarian Empire, the Kingdom of Bohemia might become independent directly. Under such circumstances, the Grand Duke of Bohemia would of course cooperate with the Germans. After all, this is the least risky approach. If they cooperate with the Austro-Hungarian Empire to resist the Germans' army, they don't know how much they will pay. What does the Hungarian government say? Prime Minister Mario Weber asked. Your Excellency, the Hungarian government also rejected our request. They claimed that this war was entirely caused by His Majesty the Emperor. His Majesty the Emperor should be responsible for this. The Kingdom of Hungary will not pay for this. All responsibility should be borne by Austria. They will strictly observe neutrality in this war. Arsehole. The Hungarians, like the Bohemians, must have colluded with the Germans. Otherwise, how dare they do this? Karolai said with red eyes. That's for sure. Before launching the war, the Germans had already reached an agreement with the Hungarians. I'm afraid that after we are defeated, the Kingdom of Hungary will also become independent from the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Bohemia has been lost one after another. After the Kingdom of Austria and the Kingdom of Hungary, the Austro-Hungarian Empire will cease to exist. Prime Minister Mario Weber said with a sad face. He couldn't seem to believe it all. The Austrian Emperor Franz Joseph I had only passed away for more than 2 months, and the mighty Austro-Hungarian Empire had already reached the end of its rope. The other ministers were also unhappy. Once the Austro-Hungarian Empire ceased to exist, their ministers would also lose their current status. Although none of them wanted such a thing to happen, there was nothing they could do about it. When Karolai decided to withdraw from the Allies, they had already persuaded him. However, Karolai still insisted on going his own way. Now, the Austro-Hungarian Empire has fallen to its current state, which is undoubtedly caused by Karolai. It's just that it doesn't make any sense to hold anyone accountable now. There is no doubt that the Austro-Hungarian Empire lost in this war. Chapter 953, Begging Anne. No, we haven't lost yet. It's not time for despair. Even if the Bohemians and Hungarians betray us, we still have half the strength. If we fight the Germans to the death, we may not lose, yes. As long as we persevere, the Americans will support us. Baron Herzendorf, I command all the troops of the country to go to the front to resist the German attack. In addition, we need to mobilize immediately. We need more troops. Karolai ordered with red eyes. Now he is like a gambler who has lost his eyes and wants to bet all his fortune so that he can have a chance to come back. Your Majesty, even if we assemble the troops of the whole country, it will take time. If we mobilize, it will take time. I'm afraid that the Germans have already reached Vienna before we have finished these preparations. Baron Herzendorf, said the Marshal. No, it won't. Our existing army can withstand the Germans' attack. Even if we can't beat the Germans, we can at least delay the time. When we have assembled other troops and completed the mobilization, there is enough power to deal with the Germans. Caroline insisted. He stubbornly believed that his plan would definitely succeed. It's like a drowning man grabbing a straw and thinking it will save his life. Actually, all this is for naught, Your Majesty. I'm afraid we won't be able to fulfill your request. In addition, the situation is so bad. Will the Americans support us? That is obviously impossible. I even suspect that all of this was set up by the Americans' conspiracy. They want us to fight the Germans and use us to consume the strength of the Germans so that they can reap the benefits. However, the Americans may not have expected the situation to be like this. The war just broke out. We can't hold on anymore. In this case, the hope of the Americans may be in vain. Not only did we not consume the strength of the Germans, but we also made the Germans relieve the threats around them and become stronger. Bell Baron Heidold said with a wry smile. The other military and political ministers all looked deeply convinced. At this point, they can easily guess the cause and effect of all this. Only Caroline's face was as dark as the bottom of a pot. Because, from beginning to end, he seemed like a fool who was played and applauded by the Americans and the Germans. He thought he had won over the Americans and had the capital to fight against the Germans. It turned out that the Americans clearly used him as cannon fodder. The Germans were even more happy to take advantage of this opportunity to completely solve the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Bastard. These guys dare to deceive me like this. I will never let them go. Caroline said viciously. After being pointed out by the ministers, he was ashamed and angry. He could imagine that from now on, his image as the emperor would probably become a clown, ridiculed, and even ridiculed as the most incompetent emperor in the history of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Caroline absolutely did not want such a thing to happen. However, he has no way to change all this. Everyone, what should we do now? How can we keep the empire, or let the empire pay the least loss to end this war? Caroline asked. Now that he knows that all of this is a conspiracy, of course he doesn't want to continue fighting. Because, if you continue to fight, there is no chance of winning. Relying on their own strength, it is impossible for them to defeat the Germans. And the Americans are obviously unreliable. Although, he had obtained a loan of $200 million from the Americans before, so he could use this as an excuse to renege on his debts. However, the billion-dollar interest-free loan promised by the Americans later has not yet been received. $200 million caused his country to fall apart. This is undoubtedly a huge loss. The military and political ministers of the Austro-Hungarian Empire were silent. The matter has come to this point, and they don't know what to do. The Germans finally had such an excuse, and they would definitely not give up if they did not defeat the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Your Majesty, the only way now is to ask the Germans for peace and to end the war. Apart from that, we have no other choice. It's just that the Germans have finally seized the excuse of war against us and want to. It will be very difficult to get them to give up. Even if the Germans can agree, we will definitely pay an unimaginable price. Baron Berchtold said. Seeking peace? No. You can't ask the Germans for peace. In that case, I and the entire empire will become the laughing stock of the world. Caroline shook his head again and again. From the bottom of his heart he objected to making peace with the Germans. The outbreak of the war has only been one day. If the Austro-Hungarian Empire cannot sustain it and must seek peace with Germany, then Caroline and the Austro-Hungarian Empire will lose face. Your Majesty, if we don't seek peace with the Germans, then we really have no chance at all. At that time, our country will be destroyed. The Habsburg dynasty will also lose the throne of Austria. Mario? Prime Minister Weber said. Your Majesty, this is the only way. Archduke Friedrich also said. The expression on Caroline's face is very complicated, from which it can be seen how entangled his heart is. He wanted to save his face, but he also wanted to keep the empire. Unfortunately, only one of them can be chosen. Save face and lose the empire. On the contrary, shameless, maybe the empire can be saved. As a proud man, Caroli wanted to save his face. However, he could tell from the expressions on the faces of the ministers that this might not be possible. These important ministers of the empire will never allow him to act like that. Report. Kingdom of Dalmatia, Kingdom of Croatia-Slavonia, choose neutrality. Another two kingdoms decided to choose neutrality in this battle, which was undoubtedly a heavy blow to Caroli and the ministers of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Immediately afterwards, a staff officer walked in. Report. The troops on the front line are retreating without a fight. After the Germans invaded the empire, they are driving straight in. It's over. Everything is over. Ask the Germans for peace. Let the empire end this **** war at the least cost possible. Caroli said. Now he is completely desperate. All ambition was lost in one day. Chapter 954. Abandoned son. Caroli has now understood that he has lost a complete defeat. The German offensive has just begun, but the seemingly huge Austro-Hungarian Empire has already fallen apart. One after another, all the states, behind his back as the emperor, reached a secret agreement with the Germans, betraying him and the entire Austro-Hungarian Empire. Even now, even the Austrian army has retreated without fighting. Under such circumstances, what else do they use to resist the German invasion? Caroli found himself as if he was a clown, and when this matter got out, he would definitely be ridiculed by the whole world. It turns out that all my efforts, all my persistence, and all my ambitions are just a joke. Caroli murmured. Then he up and left the war room. The military and political ministers of the Austro-Hungarian Empire watched Caroli leave, but no one stopped him. Although, Caroli is still emperor now. However, after such a major mistake this time, it is almost impossible for Caroli to continue to be emperor. Even if the German Empire spared the Austro-Hungarian Empire this time, Caroli would definitely step down. The Germans will never allow a person who is hostile to Germany to be the emperor of the Austro-Hungarian Empire or the emperor of the Austrian Empire. These military and political ministers have already guessed the result. The best result is undoubtedly that the Austro-Hungarian Empire fell apart and everything returned to before the Austrian Empire and the Kingdom of Hungary formed the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Of course, if the German Empire is determined to completely destroy them, even the Austrian Empire will not allow it to continue to exist. Then, everything will be impossible. The 1000-year rule of the Habsburg dynasty will come to an end. Your Excellency the Baron, you set off immediately and head to Berlin to see His Majesty the Kaiser. In any case, let Germany give up its attack on us. Chancellor Mario Weber said. Yes, Your Excellency, Prime Minister. However, the conditions of the Germans may be very harsh. Baron Berchtold reminded. Chancellor Mario Weber said with a wry smile. Of course the conditions of the Germans will be very harsh, there is no doubt about it. However, we have no capital to resist. As long as the Austrian Empire can continue, we can accept it. Baron Berchtold nodded. He hesitated, and then asked, what if the Germans ask His Majesty Caroli to abdicate? Will we accept it? The military and political ministers of the Austro-Hungarian Empire present here suddenly turned ugly. If the Germans really asked Caroli to abdicate, it would undoubtedly slap the Austro-Hungarian Empire in the face again. It even threw the face of the entire Austro-Hungarian Empire to the ground and stepped on it fiercely. However, they have to admit that the Germans are very likely to put forward such conditions. Your Excellency, what do you think? Mario Weber asked Prime Minister. On this issue, it is far from enough for the government to reach an agreement. It must have the full support of the military. Archduke Friedrich sighed and then said, Your Majesty Caroli, it is indeed not suitable to be an emperor. This sentence made the other ministers of the Austro-Hungarian Empire nod again and again. It was only half a month since Caroli became the emperor of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, but such a big incident happened, which directly made the huge Austro-Hungarian Empire become like this. If everyone knew that there would be such consequences, even if they tried their best to rebel, they would not let Caroli inherit the throne. However, it is too late to say anything now. His Majesty Karol I caused such a big mess. It is indeed not suitable to be the emperor of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. If after this time, only the Austrian Empire can be preserved, it is better to choose a new one from the children of the Habsburg family. The new emperor, said Duke Caspar, Minister of War. Baron Marshal Herzendorf also nodded, agreeing with this point of view. Archduke Friedrich, Duke Caspar, and Baron Marshal Herzendorf expressed their positions one after another, which undoubtedly represented the attitude of the entire Austrian army. There may be others who hold the opposite attitude, but that is beside the point. In this case, if the Germans insist on asking His Majesty Karol I to abdicate, then they can also agree to their conditions. Merriweather said. Obviously, this time the Austro-Hungarian Empire didn't care about face at all. As long as they can preserve their country to the greatest extent, they would rather give up all external things. However, unfortunately, even so, their goal may be difficult to achieve. Your Excellency the Baron, you should set off immediately. For us, time is very precious. Prime Minister Merriweather said. Baron Berchtold nodded. Your Excellency Prime Minister, since time is very urgent, let the Baron take a plane to Berlin. In this case, you can arrive in a few hours. If you take the train, I'm afraid that you will be able to arrive tomorrow. Minister of War Duke Caspar suggested road. Baron Berchtold couldn't help but glared at Duke Caspar viciously. After all, aircraft in this era are undoubtedly very dangerous. If you don't pay attention, you will end up with a plane crash and death. Baron Berchtold didn't want to die so vaguely. Prime Minister Merriweather couldn't help but shine, and other ministers also thought this idea was good. For the Austro-Hungarian Empire, the most important thing now is to get the understanding of the Germans. Otherwise, once the German army continues to advance, it will not be a good thing for the Austro-Hungarian Empire. It would undoubtedly be the best if we could rush to Berlin in the shortest possible time to negotiate with the Germans. Although, flying is somewhat risky. However, this is undoubtedly worthwhile for the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Your Excellency, Baron, time is running out, so please take a risk this time. I believe that God will bless you. Prime Minister Merriweather said. The other ministers also looked at Baron Berchtold, which put him under great pressure. Under such circumstances, Baron Berchtold refused to say anything at all. If he dared to refuse, the other ministers would be very dissatisfied. After this time, he might even lose his job as foreign minister. Therefore, Baron Berchtold had no choice but to accept his fate. Okay, everyone, I'm leaving now. If I can make it to Berlin alive, I will try my best to get the best conditions. But if Kaiser Wilhelm III is determined to destroy the Austro-Hungarian Empire, then I can't help it, it's gone. There was a hint of sadness in Baron Berchtold's words. Chapter 955. The Last Crazy. In the war room of the General Staff of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, there was a man who remained silent from beginning to end. He is Admiral Anton Horst, commander of the Austro-Hungarian Navy. The Austro-Hungarian Empire did not have the post of Minister of the Navy, so Admiral Anton Horst was the supreme commander of the Navy. Originally, the Austro-Hungarian Empire did not pay much attention to the Navy. After all, their coastline is too short. The Adriatic Sea is too narrow, and it is easy to be blocked by the enemy. Therefore, the navy of the Austro-Hungarian Empire has never been strong. After Archduke Ferdinand became the crown prince, he began to pay attention to the development of the navy and increased investment in the navy. After Karol became the crown prince, he further increased his investment in the navy and even purchased 8 powerful battleships at one time, making the Austro-Hungarian Navy a powerful navy second only to the German Navy. This made the Austro-Hungarian Navy loyal to Karol I. The same is true for Admiral Anton Horst. Just now, Prime Minister Merriweather and other Austro-Hungarian military and political ministers actually began to discuss the abandonment of Karol I, which made Admiral Anton Horst very angry. Although there was no expression on his face, the hands hidden in the sleeves were clenched into fists. If it weren't for the fact that this was the territory of the army, not only would there be no results for him to attack rashly, but he would also get himself into it, and he might beat these guys hard. No matter what, Karol I is their emperor. Although, Karol I's approach this time was a bit extreme, which caused the Austro-Hungarian Empire to suffer heavy losses. However, Karoly's original intention was good. He didn't want to see Austria-Hungary being suppressed by Germany step by step, so he chose to fight back. Everything is for the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and I hope that the Austro-Hungarian Empire will become stronger. It's just that their enemy was too powerful this time, making Karoly's plan fail. However, these guys, as important ministers of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, now only want to abandon Karoly to protect their own interests. That's right, in the eyes of Admiral Lantenhorst, the actions of those ministers were not so much to preserve the Austrian Empire as to preserve their own glory and wealth will be very dissatisfied. It is precisely because of the existence of these guys that the national power of the Austro-Hungarian Empire is gradually declining. If this is not the case, how could we lose so quickly? Admiral Lantenhorst thought in his heart. After the meeting, Admiral Lantenhorst returned to the naval command. He then took off his military uniform and headed to the palace in disguise. When Admiral Lantenhorst, who was dressed in casual clothes, entered the palace, Karoly couldn't help being stunned. He didn't seem to understand why Admiral Lantenhorst chose to enter the palace in this way. You know, Admiral Lantenhorst is his most trusted and valued minister, which is almost a well-known thing in the entire Austro-Hungarian Empire. Even if it is the palace, General Lantenhorst can do whatever he wants. Now, Admiral Lantenhorst is actually dressed like this. Obviously something big has happened. Moreover, it is very detrimental to himself. Although this disastrous defeat hit Karoly deeply. However, he didn't get fooled because of this, and soon figured it out. General Lantenhorst, what happened? Karoly asked. Your Majesty, the cabinet has sent Baron Berthold to Germany to seek a meeting with the Kaiser and is ready to make peace. In order to hurry, Baron Berthold even went to Berlin by plane. Admiral Lantenhorst said. Karoly's complexion suddenly turned ugly. His courtiers were so eager to seek the forgiveness of the Germans, which undoubtedly made him feel ashamed. However, thinking that the Austro-Hungarian Empire has already suffered a complete defeat in this war, and if it does not seeking a peaceful solution to this war, the Austro-Hungarian Empire will lose more benefits. Karoly had nothing else to say. The current empire has no way to continue fighting. Seeking forgiveness from the Germans earlier is of great benefit to the empire. Karoly said. Admiral Lantenhorst nodded. However, Your Majesty, after discussions, the ministers believed that after this war, the Austro-Hungarian Empire would definitely cease to exist. If the Austrian Empire can be kept, it would be the best result. Well, the Kingdom of Hungary, the Kingdom of Bohemia, the Kingdom of Dalmatia, the Kingdom of Croatia-Slavonia and other states have all betrayed the empire. The Austro-Hungarian Empire has fallen apart and cannot exist anymore. Those the reason why the country betrayed the empire must be that the Germans promised them better terms. Therefore, after the war is over, the Germans will fulfill their promises and support the independence of those countries. At that time, Austria-Hungary, which has lost these states the empire, of course, ceased to exist. Being able to keep the Austrian Empire is already a blessing among misfortunes. Karoly sighed. If God gave him another chance, Karoly would not be so reckless. Even if he is hostile to Germany, he will not show it again until he has no strength to confront Germany. He won't be so arrogant anymore. After all, the Austro-Hungarian Empire looks like a big country, but in fact it has a lot of problems. Your Majesty, the ministers have also decided that, if the Germans want you to abdicate, they will accept it. And from among the children of the Habsburg family, a new one will be selected to be the future emperor of the Austrian Empire. Admiral Lantenhorst then he said. Suddenly, Karoly's face became quite ugly, although because of him, the Austro-Hungarian Empire suffered such a heavy blow. However, he still attaches great importance to the throne. Now, they actually want to deprive him of the throne, which is absolutely unacceptable to Karoly. Damn it. Karoly cursed. Admiral Lantenhorst said nothing. General Lantenhorst, can I trust you? Karoly asked. Your Majesty, I'm your most loyal subject. Admiral Lantenhorst assured. Karoly nodded, his eyes full of madness. If so, the empire will definitely perish, or I will be kicked out of the throne. I hope you can lead the naval fleet to ***** me to the United States and form me in exile. Karoly said. He is not someone who is willing to sit and wait for death, even at the last moment. He will not give up lightly. Yes, Your Majesty. Admiral Anton House nodded heavily. Chapter 956. Good situation. On the evening of January 19th, Qin Tian did not return to the palace, but stayed in the war room of the General Staff headquarters, listening to the frontline combat report. Your Majesty, the bad weather has had some impact on the actions of our troops. However, the traffic conditions are relatively good, whether it is in the Empire or the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Therefore, the rain and snow will not affect us. Big. However, if it is replaced by the Eastern European plain, then the trouble will be big, said Marshal Falkenhayn, Minister of War and Chief of the General Staff. Qin Tian nodded. Launching a large-scale military operation in the cold winter is indeed a very risky thing. Fortunately, both Germany and the Austro-Hungarian Empire can be regarded as industrially developed countries, and the transportation conditions are relatively good. Therefore, it enabled the German army to launch military operations in winter. In addition, the logistical support of the German army is far stronger than that of other countries. Whether it is clothing to keep out the cold or fuel for heating, there is an adequate supply. Make sure that the troops have no worries during the process of marching and fighting. In other countries, the cold winter alone is enough to raise the non-combat attrition of the troops to a very terrifying height. Your Majesty, the 3rd Army and the 5th Army have all entered the territory of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. The Austro-Hungarian army has hardly resisted. However, due to the weather, the troops only advanced 20 kilometers. According to this speed, it is estimated that it will take about 10 days to advance to Vienna. The advance speed of the 6th Army and the 7th Army in the Kingdom of Bohemia is also very fast. Thanks to the Grand Duke of Bohemia with the cooperation, most of the troops in the Kingdom of Bohemia have laid down their weapons, and only a small number of troops continue to resist. That part of the army has been surrounded by us. Our troops are crossing the Kingdom of Bohemia, rushing go to Austria, cooperate with the 3rd Army and the 5th Army, and attack the Austrian army. As for the 9th Army, it will continue to serve as a reserve. However, when the Austro-Hungarian Empire has collapsed, and other countries do not support Austria, the 9th Army, it is completely unnecessary to go to the battlefield. Marshal von Falkenhayn continued. The current situation can be said to be very good. It was only the first day of the war, and the German army was like entering no man's land. More importantly, the states of the Austro-Hungarian Empire have defected or remained neutral. This left Austria alone in the huge Austro-Hungarian Empire. You know, without the support of those states, if only Austria is left, their strength is at most only a little over 30% of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Originally, the strength of the Austro-Hungarian Empire was not comparable to that of Germany. Now, only Austria is left, and Germany can crush them at will. In the view of Marshal von Falkenhayn, it is more than enough to dispatch 4 armies to destroy Austria. The current situation is very favorable to us. Our enemies are only the Austrians. Their army is not only low in combat effectiveness, but also very weak in fighting will. It seems that we will soon be able to defeat them. Qin Tian said very optimistically. However, in terms of time, we need to be as fast as possible. Find a way to provide more trucks to the front line, so that the daily advance speed of the troops can be further increased. It is best to advance to Vienna within a week. As long as Vienna can be taken, then Austria it's over. This battle can be over, Qin Tian said. He hoped that this battle would end as soon as possible. In this case, not only could the losses of the troops be minimized, but also the materials consumed would be the least. More importantly, such a quick demise of a big country is undoubtedly a great deterrent to other countries in the world. Yes, Your Majesty. Marshal von Falkenhayn nodded. Among the German army, it is undoubtedly equipped with a large number of trucks, although it has not yet reached the point where troops march directly on trucks. At least trucks are used to transport supplies and tow cannons. As for mules and horses, there are very few of them in the German army. The cavalry unit is also almost eliminated. After the appearance of armored forces, the function of cavalry was extremely weakened. Except for the ceremonial cavalry that still exists, the field cavalry has almost been abolished. Marshal von Falkenhayn has decided to transfer trucks from other troops, or even recruit trucks directly from the people, so that the advancing speed of the troops should be further improved. Even if the daily advance speed can be increased by 10 kilometers, it can meet Qin Tian's requirements. Where's the navy? Qin Tian asked. This time the military strike against the Austro-Hungarian Empire is not just a matter of the army, the navy also has tasks. Even, the mission of the navy is not small, Your Majesty. The Mediterranean fleet of the Imperial Navy has entered a state of emergency combat readiness. We have deployed some submarines and light warships in the border waters between the Adriatic Sea and the Mediterranean Sea to detect the movements of the Austro-Hungarian Navy. We took off from Sicily. The seaplanes are also focusing on reconnaissance in this sea area. Once the Austro-Hungarian Navy is dispatched, we will be able to know immediately. Marshal Reinhard Scheer said. Qin Tian nodded. The terrain of the Adriatic Sea was indeed very unfavorable to the Austro-Hungarian Navy. Once war starts, the navy of the Austro-Hungarian Empire must leave the Adriatic Sea. Otherwise, it will be blocked inside. The Imperial Navy's local fleet and the Indian Ocean Fleet are on their way to the Mediterranean. It is estimated that the local fleet will be able to enter the Mediterranean in 2 days, while the Indian Ocean Fleet will take 3 days. Marshal Reinhard Scheer said. This is still because the Indian Ocean Fleet moved in advance, otherwise, it would take a long time to reach the Mediterranean. The Imperial Navy's Atlantic Fleet has also stepped up its vigilance. If the US Navy dares to get involved in this war, the Atlantic Fleet will resist them. In addition, the Imperial Navy's aircraft carrier fleet has also entered the Atlantic Ocean to stand by. The 6 aircraft carriers plus the Atlantic Ocean, the strength of the fleet is enough to bury the US Navy. Marshal Reinhard Scheer is very confident about this. Qin Tian nodded in satisfaction. The Imperial Army and Navy are progressing smoothly so far. It can be said that the Empire has already laid the foundation for victory in this battle. It won't be long before the Empire will once again be able to achieve a great victory that will shock the entire world. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 957, Imperial Demands. In the eyes of the world, although the Austro-Hungarian Empire is not the most powerful country in the world, it is still one of the most powerful countries in the world. Although everyone thinks that the Austro-Hungarian Empire is definitely not Germany's opponent in this battle. However, due to the influence of weather conditions and the advantage of the defensive side, many people and countries believe that the Austro-Hungarian Empire will persist for a long time. Some people even think that Germany will pay a heavy price in the battle to attack the Austro-Hungarian Empire. However, it is a pity that their guesses were obviously wrong. The Austro-Hungarian Empire was so vulnerable in this battle. Before Qin Tian left the general staff, Foreign Minister Wahid approached him. What's the matter, Your Excellency, Minister of Foreign Affairs? Could it be that the Austro-Hungarian Empire can't hold on anymore? Qin Tian said with a smile. Although the war has only started for 1 day, but with the entire Austro-Hungarian Empire falling apart, the Austro-Hungarian Empire found that it was bound to lose. It is completely understandable to propose a summation to Germany at this time. After all, the current situation is already very unfavorable to the Austro-Hungarian Empire. If they continue to fight, they will not see the slightest hope of victory. Your Majesty, yes, the Austro-Hungarian Empire has come to seek peace. Baron Berchtold has arrived in Berlin and is heading to the palace. I hope to see you. Vachta said. What? Baron Berchtold has come? How is this possible? How could it be so fast? He came by plane? Qin Tian thought of it all at once. Yes, Your Majesty. Baron Berchtold arrived in Berlin by plane and just landed at the airport. Vachta said. Qin Tian couldn't help admiring this young baron very much. You must know that the risk factor of aircraft in this era is still very high. If you are not careful, you may risk your own life. As a high-ranking foreign minister of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, Baron Berchtold dared to fly to Germany, which is undoubtedly worthy of admiration. Of course, Qin Tian also knew that the reason why he did that was to rush for time. For the safety of one's own country, it is indeed very rare and valuable to be able to do this step. Your Majesty, do you want to see him? Wahid asked. As the Emperor of the Empire, Qin Tian has every right to choose to see or not see Baron Berchtold. After all, the fate of the Austro-Hungarian Empire has already been decided long ago. In other words, it was decided when Karol I decided to betray Germany and withdraw from the Allies. Even when Qin Tian began to plot against the Austro-Hungarian Empire, the tragic end of the Austro-Hungarian Empire was already doomed. It's just that the people of the Austro-Hungarian Empire didn't know it. Therefore, they are still making final efforts for the destiny of the country. Arrange it, I'll meet him in the palace. After all, Baron Berchtold took the risk of coming here by plane. If he refused to even meet him, it would be a bit too unreasonable. Qin Tian said. Yes, Your Majesty. Vashite nodded. Half an hour later, in the office of the palace, Qin Tian received Baron Berchtold, who had come all the way. His Majesty the Emperor, thank you for being able to meet me, for giving me and the Austro-Hungarian Empire a chance. Baron Berchtold expressed his gratitude. After all, right now Germany and Austria-Hungary are at war. If Qin Tian chooses not to see him, then he has nothing to do. As the emperor of the most powerful country in the world, it is only natural that he should be stronger. What's more, the Austro-Hungarian Empire is still about to be defeated by Germany. Your Excellency, Baron, I only saw you because of the traditional friendship between our two countries. However, because of Emperor Karol I's insistence on going his own way, our traditional friendship has disappeared. Qin Tian said. I know, Your Majesty. His Majesty the Emperor of our country did a wrong thing before, which seriously affected the relationship between our two countries. Now, His Majesty the Emperor of our country already knows that he was wrong, so he sent me to see His Majesty. I hope I can ask His Majesty the Emperor for forgiveness. I hope His Majesty will forgive the behavior of the Austro-Hungarian Empire this time for the sake of the traditional friendship between our two countries. We guarantee that from now on, the Austro-Hungarian Empire will follow the lead of the German Empire, and never I will not betray. Baron Berchtold swore. Qin Tian couldn't help laughing. Your Excellency the Baron, although I haven't met the Emperor of your country much, I still know him better. I believe that with his personality, he will never bow to the German Empire, let alone I made a mistake. A trace of embarrassment flashed across Baron Berchtold's face, but it disappeared quickly. A diplomat like him has undoubtedly trained his face to a very thick level. Your Majesty, no matter what, the Austro-Hungarian Empire really realized its mistake this time. We hope that the German Empire will give us another chance. Baron Berchtold said. Qin Tian shook his head. The opportunity has already been given to you. When Karol I announced his withdrawal from the Allies, we gave you 3 days to consider. However, you still insisted on going your own way in the end. Don't push all the responsibilities to Karol. He has just inherited the throne. If all the ministers of the Austro-Hungarian Empire object, Karol I will have nothing to do with you. Baron Berchtold's face could not help flashing a trace of despair. He knew that Qin Tian's intention was very obvious, that is, there was no room for negotiation. Your Majesty, is there really no chance for the Austro-Hungarian Empire? Is the German Empire really going to destroy the Austro-Hungarian Empire? Baron Berchtold said desperately. Your Excellency, in order to avoid unnecessary sacrifices, I can tell you very clearly, the Austro-Hungarian Empire will no longer exist, and will soon become a historical term. The states of the Austro-Hungarian Empire will all be independent. However, they will become the protectorate of the German Empire. The specific situation needs to be negotiated. Qin Tian said. What about Austria? The Austro-Hungarian Empire no longer exists, but Austria can always continue to exist? Baron Berchtold asked. This is undoubtedly their last hope. Austria will cease to exist, and the empire will annex Austria. Austria and the German Empire were originally one. Before the Austrian-Prussian War, Austria was also a state of Germany. Now, Austria should return to the embrace of the German Empire. Qin Tian said with a smile. Chapter 958, Bloody. The German Empire wants to annex Austria. Baron Berchtold's eyes widened. He never imagined that Germany actually had such an idea. Originally, he and the ministers of the Austro-Hungarian Empire believed that the abdication of Caroline and the disintegration of the Austro-Hungarian Empire would calm the anger of the German Empire. After all, the Austrian Empire at that time no longer posed any threat to Germany. However, Baron Berchtold only now knows that everyone has underestimated the appetite of the Germans. The appetite of the young emperor of the German Empire was greater than anyone imagined. Your Majesty, after the Austrian-Prussian War, Austria has withdrawn from Germany. It has been more than half a century. The Austrians no longer have a sense of belonging and identity to the German Empire. If your Majesty forcibly annexes Austria, it will definitely arouse the resistance of the Austrians. You know, Austria has a population of nearly 20 million, and only about 70% of them are Germans. Baron Berchtold said. He tried his best to want Kaiser Qin Tian to dispel his attempt to annex Austria. Although, he knew it was very difficult. However, for the future of the country, he still has to try his best. I know, but I believe that, as long as they are Germans, they will definitely recognize the German Empire. Now, the German Empire is the most powerful country in the world. I think those Germans will be very happy to become citizens of the world's most powerful country. Qin Tian said with a smile. Although Germany has implemented family planning, it will take at least 20 years to see the effect. In order to further increase the population of Germany, Qin Tian had no choice but to turn his mind to Austria. Of Austria's 20 million population, only about 70% are Germans. But if you add the population of Germany itself, it will be more than 70 million. It can be said that the annexation of Austria will increase the population of Germany and make it more powerful. Therefore, Qin Tian will never give up on annexing Austria. Your Majesty, if Germany forcibly annexes Austria, we will persist in resisting to the end. Although the Austro-Hungarian Empire has fallen apart, Austria still has considerable strength. At that time, the German Empire will pay a considerable price. Baron Berchtold threatened. Since soft ones are not enough, then only hard ones are available. Really? Baron, I'm very much looking forward to the performance of your country's army. However, I believe that the army of the German Empire is the strongest, and the final victory must belong to us. If your country is really stubborn, that will only increase unnecessary casualties. Qin Tian was not angry, but said with a smile. Baron Berchtold is completely desperate. He knew that nothing would work. It is already impossible to cancel the German Empire's plan to annex Austria. Okay, Your Majesty, I already know the requirements of the German Empire. I will pass them on to the country. Baron Berchtold said. Now he looks very helpless, as if he has aged a lot. Your Excellency, the annexation of Austria by the German Empire is irreversible. In order to avoid unnecessary casualties, I hope that the Austro-Hungarian Empire will take the initiative to cooperate. I can promise you that after the Empire annexes Austria, it will try its best to take care of your interests. Qin Tian said. Baron Berchtold nodded, without saying anything, and after saluting Qin Tian, he turned and left. Watched. Isn't it too cruel for us to do this? Qin Tian asked. No, Your Majesty. Everything we do is for the benefit of the German Empire. For the benefit of the Empire, we must do that. Watched said. Qin Tian nodded. Indeed, everything is for the benefit of the German Empire. As long as this is the premise, no matter what you do, it is understandable. Baron Berchtold returned to the embassy. Although the two countries are already at war, the embassy is not yet closed. Therefore, Baron Berchtold can use the radio station here to communicate with the country. It was already late at night when Baron Berchtold watched the telegrapher send the telegram with his own eyes. God, have we really been abandoned? Baron Berchtold murmured. He had a feeling that with the death of Franz Joseph I, the Austro-Hungarian Empire seemed to have ceased to exist. The capital of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, Vienna, the Prime Minister's office, and all the military and political ministers of the Austro-Hungarian Empire are here. Although, it is already late at night, and everyone is yawning. But no one left. Before they received the telegram from Baron Berchtold, they couldn't even sleep soundly. Your Excellency, Your Excellency, Your Excellency, the foreign minister has sent a telegram. the secretary reported. Prime Minister Mario Weber immediately took the telegram and read it. The rest of the people gathered behind him and read the telegram together. Bastard. The Germans actually want to annex us. They have a big appetite. The Minister of War, Duke Kaspar, cursed. The faces of Archduke Friedrich and Baron Marshal Herzendorf were also very ugly. Germany's attempt made them, soldiers, shameless. We have compromised, but the Germans still refuse to let us go. The Minister of Finance, Duke Andras, also looked angry. Gentlemen, what should we do now? Baron Berchtold has made it very clear that the Germans are very determined to annex Austria. It is almost impossible for them to cancel this attempt. Mario? Prime Minister Weber said. Perhaps, even if we resist to the end, we will not be able to prevent the Germans from annexing Austria. However, we cannot do nothing and allow the Germans to annex Austria easily. We want the Germans to see that the Austrians are also ****, said Archduke Friedrich. Yes, the only way is to let the Germans see our determination and let them see our strength. Only in this way will they give up their unrealistic delusions. Baron Herzendorf also said. Then let's fight to the end, said the Minister of War, Duke Kaspar. Although, they all know that, even if they fight to the end, there will be no chance of winning. However, after humiliating and failing to get what they wanted, they could only fight to the death. When the country was about to cease to exist, their blood was also inspired. Chapter 959, Mud can't support the wall. Across the ocean, the United States and the British government in exile in Canada are also very concerned about the war between Germany and the Austro-Hungarian Empire. The Austro-Hungarian Empire withdrew from the Allies and turned against Germany. This was originally planned by the Americans. For this reason, they paid a loan of $200 million for this. However, a loan of $200 million is nothing compared to the benefits obtained. If Germany suffered heavy losses in the Austro-Hungarian Empire, no matter how much money it paid, the United States would never be stingy. President Woodrow Wilson stayed in the office all day, waiting for news from Europe. Gentlemen, if a war breaks out between the Germans and the Austro-Hungarian Empire, with the size of their forces, it may be a large-scale war involving millions of people. The whole of Europe will be smashed by them. Woodrow, President Wilson said enthusiastically. It is very difficult for the new continent to replace the old one. After all, compared to the new world, which has just begun to develop for 200 years, the old world has already developed very powerfully. Unless years of wars completely destroy the old continent, otherwise, there is almost no possibility of the new continent replacing the old one. President Woodrow Wilson had undoubtedly been looking forward to such a war. Originally, World War I should have been an opportunity for the United States. But unfortunately, Germany's performance in this war was really amazing. It actually took only 1 year to establish the victory. A year and a half later, Germany had almost won the war. Of course, this war caused great damage to Europe. However, only Belgium, northern France and the British Isles were destroyed. Elsewhere in continental Europe, losses were very slight. This makes the overall strength of Europe not affected too much. This also makes Europe's strength still far stronger than that of America. Germany's original industrial output value lagged behind that of the United States. However, after obtaining the whole of Belgium and most of France, Germany's industrial output value is no less than that of the United States. Coupled with the huge territory and colonies acquired by Germany during the war, it is only a matter of time before it surpasses the United States. This gave the United States a serious sense of crisis. It is precisely because of this that the Americans did everything possible to provoke the Austro-Hungarian Empire, hoping that a large-scale war would break out again in the hinterland of Europe. The longer the war is fought, the worse it will be, the greater the loss, and the better it will be for the United States. Your Excellency, it would be interesting if the Austro-Hungarian Empire broke out with all its strength and the Germans desperately, said War Minister Garrison. Carl is a very headstrong and conceited person. He will never allow his army to fail the Germans. However, I think we should let the Austro-Hungarian Empire see hope. Only in this way can Carol persevere. Secretary of State Bryan said. President Woodrow Wilson nodded. Send a telegram to the Austro-Hungarian Empire. telling them that our army has begun to mobilize and will soon set off for Europe. Our fleet is about to go to sea. Yes, Your Majesty. Brian nodded. He knew that this was nothing more than deceiving the Austro-Hungarian Empire. If Karolai, the Emperor of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, hadn't seen hope, the battle might not have been so fierce. Your Excellency, the fleet can go to sea at any time. However, what should we do if we encounter a German fleet in the Atlantic Ocean? Secretary of the Navy Daniels asked. The current US Navy is not as powerful as the German Navy, but the same strength is not weak. Beginning in 1914, the US Navy's large-scale shipbuilding program began. For 2.5 years, the first battleships have entered service. Subsequent warships will also be in service in the next few years. This will make the US Navy even more powerful. If our Navy encounters the Germans' Atlantic fleet, will it be able to eat them? President Woodrow Wilson asked. Your Excellency, if it is just the German Atlantic fleet, there is no problem eating them. Now, our Navy has 2 Pennsylvania-class battleships, 3 New Mexico-class battleships, and 2 Tennessee-class battleships. Battleship and 4 Colorado-class battleships. Among them, the 7 battleships of the first 3 tiers are equipped with 12 356mm main guns, and the 4 Colorado-class battleships are equipped with 406mm main guns. Once encountering the Germans, if it is the Atlantic fleet, we can completely eat them, Minister Daniels said confidently. Although the number of capital ships of the US Navy is not many, each one is very powerful. In particular, the 4 Colorado-class battleships that have just entered service, even with the help of the British, adopted 406mm main guns, which are very powerful. If this is the case, let the fleet go. However, you must not open fire without an order, unless the Germans attack first, President Woodrow Wilson said. Yes, Your Excellency the President. Minister Daniels immediately went to give the order. Since the US Navy was directly forced back by the German Navy in the last World War, this has made the US Navy feel ashamed. They all hope that one day they will be able to avenge their shame. Now, it almost seems to have come. Your Excellency, a telegram from the embassy in Austria-Hungary. The secretary hurried in. President Woodrow Wilson immediately took the telegram from the secretary and read it. However, soon his face became very ugly. Those ministers in the US cabinet immediately realized that it seemed that the situation in Europe was not good, and everything was not developing in the direction they expected. Your Excellency, what happened? Secretary of State Brian asked. Other cabinet ministers are closely staring at President Woodrow Wilson. They also wanted to know what made President Woodrow Wilson lose his composure. I'm sorry, everyone, I lost my composure. The news I got really made him so angry. President Woodrow Wilson said, I have to admit that the allies we chose this time are completely muddy and can't support the wall. Those idiots in the Austro-Hungarian Empire behaved really badly. Karolai couldn't even control the states under him, and he still dare to be hostile to Germany and clamor to defeat Germany. I really don't know where he got the courage. President Woodrow Wilson said angrily. He suddenly had a feeling of fooling others, but fooling himself into a ditch. Chapter 960. Stealing chickens is not enough to lose rice. Your Excellency, what happened? Could it be that something happened to the Austro-Hungarian Empire? Secretary of State Brian asked. After all, as the president of a country, it is undoubtedly inappropriate to insult the emperors of other countries like this. Even if everyone won't say it, it will also have a very bad impact on the reputation of the United States. Austro-Hungarian Empire did have an accident. After the German offensive began, the Grand Duke of Bohemia issued an order requiring all Bohemian troops to lay down their arms and surrender to the Germans. The German army spread throughout Bohemia. The sub-kingdom did not encounter any obstacles at all. Now, they are rapidly advancing towards Austria. President Woodrow Wilson said. The Germans bought the Grand Duke of Bohemia. They must have reached some kind of agreement in private. The biggest possibility is that the Germans promised to support the independence of the Kingdom of Bohemia after defeating the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Only in this way, the Grand Duke of Bohemia will betray the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Brian analyzed. President Woodrow Wilson nodded. It is indeed possible. However, it is too late to say this now, and it is meaningless. The betrayal of the Kingdom of Bohemia has greatly damaged the strength of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. It may be very difficult for the Austro-Hungarian Empire to fight, Your Excellency. The Kingdom of Bohemia is not very strong in the Austro-Hungarian Empire. After deducting the Kingdom of Bohemia, the Austro-Hungarian Empire still has 80% of its strength. If they play well, it is not impossible to resist German, said Secretary of War Garrison. What I'm worried about is that, since the Kingdom of Bohemia has problems, then other states of the Austro-Hungarian Empire will definitely have problems as well. After all, if the Germans want to buy, it is impossible to just buy the Kingdom of Bohemia. The Kingdom of Hungary and other states of the Austro-Hungarian Empire must also be the targets of the Germans. If those states all betray the Austro-Hungarian Empire, then the entire Austro-Hungarian Empire will fall apart. This one battle, and they are lost. And they are going to lose it soon, said President Woodrow Wilson. Those countries will not all betray, right? After all, the Austro-Hungarian Empire has been established for half a century. No matter how stupid Karol is, he should know how to control those countries. Minister Garrison said. It's very difficult to say. All in all, the current situation in the Austro-Hungarian Empire is very bad. This time, our plan may fail. President Woodrow Wilson sighed. The high-ranking officials in the US government's cabinet all looked unsightly. You know, they invested $200 million in order to set up the game this time. That is real money. If the Austro-Hungarian Empire fails, the $200 million will be in vain. In other words, if the Austro-Hungarian Empire failed quickly, then their $200 million would be worthless. Finance Minister McAdoo was even more fortunate. Fortunately, the $1 billion interest-free loan promised to the Austro-Hungarian Empire had not yet been paid in time. Otherwise, their losses will be great. Not long after, the secretary opened the door again and walked in. Is it bad news again? President Woodrow Wilson asked. The secretary nodded. Yes, Your Excellency the President. Well, it looks like today is a bad day. Woodrow? President Wilson said. The Kingdom of Hungary declared that it would strictly observe neutrality in this war. The Prime Minister of the Hungarian government even publicly declared that he would not pay for Karol's stupid behavior. The Chief of Staff of the Hungarian Army, Baron Tobers, even ordered all Hungarian troops to stay in the barracks inside. Don't go out until the end of the war, the secretary said. Damn. Hungary is not Bohemia. They are much stronger than Bohemia. Their strength has accounted for 1/3 of the entire Austro-Hungarian Empire. The Kingdom of Hungary is neutral, so the Austro-Hungarian Empire is simply there is no need to continue the fight. Because this is completely meaningless. The betrayal of the Kingdom of Bohemia and the Kingdom of Hungary directly caused the Austro-Hungarian Empire to lose half of its strength. It is impossible for them to resist the German attack. Gary Minister Maury shook his head and said. The Germans must have been planning for a long time, otherwise, it would be impossible to directly make the Kingdom of Bohemia and the Kingdom of Hungary defect in such a short period of time. Brian said, I suddenly have a feeling that the Germans have long been preparing to attack the Austro-Hungarian Empire. It's just that they haven't found a suitable excuse. Now, we are encouraging the Austro-Hungarian Empire to withdraw from the alliance, which just gives the German Empire an excuse. President Woodrow Wilson said. For a while, all the senior officials of the US government cabinet were speechless. If everything is as President Woodrow Wilson said, then the Germans are too terrible. Gentlemen, it seems that the Austria-Hungary Empire can't last long. This time, we lost to the Germans again. After the Austria-Hungary Empire is defeated by the Germans, the threat around them will be lifted. And their strength, it will also increase a lot again. What we need to face in the future is a more difficult opponent. President Woodrow Wilson said. The other cabinet ministers nodded. Everyone thinks that it will be even more difficult to defeat Germany. Your Excellency, it is still a telegram from the Austro-Hungarian Empire. The secretary walked in again. Read it. President Woodrow Wilson no longer expressed any hope. The Kingdom of Dalmatia, the Kingdom of Croatia, Slavonia and other states have declared their neutrality. Their troops do not obey the dispatch of the central government of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. In addition, the Austrian army on the front line also collapsed without fighting, said the secretary. It seems that the Austro-Hungarian Empire is clearly a country that is strong on the outside and capable on the inside. We have all been deceived by them. Brian said. That's right. They are one of the world's most powerful countries, and they were victors in the last World War. I didn't expect it to end up like this. Minister Garrison also said. These ministers of the US cabinet are very disappointed with the performance of the Austro-Hungarian Empire this time. Originally, they expected that a fierce war would break out between the Austro-Hungarian Empire and Germany. But now it seems that this is simply their extravagant hope. Your Excellency, what about the fleet? Minister Daniels asked. Let the fleet go around the East Atlantic. Try not to conflict with the Germans. President Woodrow Wilson said. Chapter 961. Disappointed. Canada, Toronto, Prime Minister's Office. Although the British government was forced to leave the mainland and went into exile in Canada. However, Britain still has considerable potential power on the European continent. The war between Germany and Austria-Hungary in Europe also made Britain ecstatic. Some optimistic British ministers even believed that this war would cause heavy losses to Germany. At that time, Britain may be able to take the opportunity to counterattack the mainland. Canada's various foundations are too weak, which makes it almost impossible for the United Kingdom to use Canada to become stronger again. Originally, Canada's population was only a few million. However, when Britain lost its mainland and retreated to Canada, British people continued to flee to Canada from the mainland and other colonies. Especially after the German army began to attack the British colonies, British people from all over the world gathered in Canada, making the population of Canada exceed 10 million. But even this is far from enough for the British government, which wants to become strong again, defeat Germany, and regain the British mainland. Therefore, they will cooperate with the Americans. This time, the Americans provoked Germany and the Austro-Hungarian Empire to go to war, and the British did not contribute less. Otherwise, everything would not be so smooth. Among other things, when Caroline made the decision to withdraw from the Allies, the British used their strength to get the ministers of the Austro-Hungarian Empire who were influenced by them to support Caroline's decision. This made the decision of Caroline passed. Finally, the war broke out as it wished. This made the British ecstatic. Even if the Austro-Hungarian Empire cannot defeat Germany, as long as it can make Germany pay a relatively large loss, it is a victory. However, the final result does not seem to satisfy the British. When a series of news from Europe was compiled, the ministers of the British cabinet all turned pale. It's hard to imagine that the Austro-Hungarian Empire has always been known as one of the great powers. However, they are so vulnerable. Just after the Germans came, this powerful empire has already fallen apart. This time, the Germans, not only will it not pay a heavy price in the Austro-Hungarian Empire, but it can also solve a powerful country around it in one fell swoop, making them safer. This is not a good thing for the British Empire. Churchill said with a dark face. Yeah. No one can believe that the Austro-Hungarian Empire is so weak. But the Emperor Caroline, doesn't he know that? Knowing that his country is so weak, but to provoke the Germans, this is simply courting death. How did the Habsburg dynasty produce such an emperor? Sir Edward Grey, the British Foreign Secretary, sighed. After all, the Habsburg dynasty is considered a very famous royal family in Europe, and it can be compared with the royal family of the British Empire. However, it is a pity that these two royal families are now under the attack of the Germans and have fallen. Your Excellency Prime Minister, what should we do next? It may be a long way off, if we want to regain our homeland. Secretary of the Army Kitchener said with regret. If the homeland can be regained, the strength of the British Empire will rise a lot. Among other things, enough soldiers will expand their army to more than 2 million. Unlike in Canada now, even for extreme mobilization, it can be expanded to a maximum of 1 million. With such a small force, it is almost impossible to go on an expedition to Europe and defeat Germany. Therefore, they can only pin their hopes on the Americans now, and hope that the Americans can do more. For the time being, we can only wait. We need to wait further. Wait until we become stronger again, and our American allies have the strength to defeat the Germans. It will be difficult to defeat the Germans with our strength alone. Churchill sighed. The other ministers nodded repeatedly, although the result was very frustrating. However, the fact is that there is nothing they can do. Your Excellency, the Americans sent a fleet to the eastern Atlantic Ocean. Originally, they planned to cooperate with the Austro-Hungarian Navy and attack the German Navy. But now, the Austro-Hungarian Empire is so vulnerable. I think the Americans sent the fleet to the eastern part of the Atlantic Ocean seems to be useless. Admiral Jellicoe, Secretary of the Navy, said. Although Admiral Jellicoe commanded the Grand Fleet at the beginning, he was not able to defeat the German Navy, but caused the Royal Navy to fail miserably. However, Admiral Jellicoe, as a general who has fought against the German Navy, has quite a lot of experience. In the absence of other suitable candidates, Admiral Jellicoe is undoubtedly a very suitable candidate. The Americans sent a fleet to the eastern Atlantic Ocean to demonstrate to the Germans. Unfortunately, the Imperial Navy is now in great decline, and the rebuilt capital ship has not yet been able to serve. Otherwise, we can join forces with the US Navy. Let the Germans pay a heavy price. Churchill said. The British Navy was almost completely lost in the last war, which made them flee to Canada without a single capital ship. The capital ships built in the UK fell into the hands of the Germans before they were completed. This makes it necessary for Britain to rebuild its capital ships if it wants to revive its navy. Canada's shipyards do not have the ability to build capital ships, which makes the UK have to invest heavily in upgrading the shipyards. After these projects are completed, the construction of new capital ships will begin. So far, it's only half finished. If you want to serve in the military, you may have to wait a year. All in all, the British cabinet is very disappointed with the performance of the Austro-Hungarian Empire this time. Originally, I wanted to use the hands of the Austro-Hungarian Empire to make Germany pay heavy losses. Unexpectedly, the final result was that Germany easily solved the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Also very disappointed with the performance of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. There are also island countries in the Far East. The last time the island nation suffered a disastrous defeat, it not only spit out all the colonies in Nanyang. At the same time, the coastal areas of the country were turned into ruins by the Germans, which can be described as heavy losses. Originally, they were still thinking about the outbreak of war between Germany and the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Once the war reached a stalemate, they would be able to take the opportunity to send troops to attack Nanyang again. In that case, not only would they be able to avenge their shame, but they would also be able to take the opportunity to occupy the colonies in Nanyang and let the island countries solve their resource bottlenecks. But unfortunately, they never expected that the Austro-Hungarian Empire would be so vulnerable. This made the island nation's plan come to an end before it even started. Chapter 962, Siege of Vienna. On January 20th, 1917, early in the morning, Baron Berchtold, Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, went to the Imperial Palace to meet Kaiser Wilhelm III. Although just woke up and was eating breakfast, but Qin Tian still ate the bread in his hand, drank the milk, and apologized to the Queen and the children with an apologetic face, and then went to the study. Your Excellency Baron, good morning, Qin Tian said with a smile. Although the other party was the foreign minister of a hostile country, Qin Tian did not speak ill of each other. After all, war is nothing more than a continuation of politics. For politicians like them, there is no absolute hatred. Everything is just for their own national interests. Your Majesty, I'm sorry to disturb you so early, Baron Berchtold said expressionlessly, and he looked at Qin Tian with a trace of hatred in his eyes. After all, their country is about to be destroyed by Germany, with the Austro-Hungarian Empire already falling apart, unless God came to the world. Otherwise, no one can stop Austria from being wiped out. Qin Tian waved his hand, but he didn't care about it. Your Excellency the Baron, since you came to see me so early, you must have already received an answer in your country? Qin Tian asked. Yes, Your Majesty the Emperor. Although the Austro-Hungarian Empire has collapsed, it is absolutely impossible to stop the iron heel of Germany with the strength of Austria alone. However, we still will not surrender. If Germany wants to occupy the Austro-Hungarian Empire, then crush the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Our army will fight to the death. Germany will pay a huge price for this, Baron Berchtold said with a determined face. Qin Tian nodded, not surprised that the Austro-Hungarian Empire would reply in this way. After all, in any country, it is impossible for everyone to be cowards. Especially in the upper class, there are still people who are bloody. In times of crisis, they can also fight to the end. Your Excellency, Baron, I can understand you, and at the same time, I admire you for making such a decision. However, for the benefit of the German Empire, I will not hold back. I wish you good luck. Qin Tian said thank you, Your Majesty, goodbye. After Baron Berchtold finished speaking, he bowed and saluted Qin Tian, then turned and left the palace. At this moment, it undoubtedly represents that peace efforts have completely failed. In the end, it is still necessary to rely on means of war to solve the problem. However, judging from the current situation, the Austro-Hungarian Empire, or Austria, does not have any advantage at all. Even if they resist desperately, it is impossible for them to last long. What's more, not all Austrians are determined to resist. Especially in the army, there are many people who are greedy and afraid of death. Under such circumstances, Austria's resistance will become even more difficult. The advance of the German army continues. Despite the cold weather, icy roads or thick snow, these have set up many obstacles for the advance of the troops. However, none of this could stop the German advance. While the German Army Logistics Department tried to send more trucks to the front line, the German army's advancing speed became faster and faster. Of course, there is a very important reason for this. That is, almost all the troops of the Austro-Hungarian Empire did not resist. This made the German attack more like a hurry. Under such circumstances, it was not difficult for the German army to quickly reach Vienna. Report: the German army has captured Amstetten. A staff officer reported. Archduke Friedrich, Duke Caspar, and Baron Marshal Herzendorf all looked increasingly ugly. You know, Amstetten is less than 100 kilometers away from Vienna. The advance speed of the German army is too fast, isn't it? It's only the third day of the war, and they are about to advance to Vienna. At this speed, there are at most 3 days before they will reach Vienna. Marshal Barandov said. Where are the defenders stationed there? As I remember, there are at least 5 infantry divisions there. Archduke Friedrich asked. Originally, they also counted on the defenders of Amstetten to persist for a while. After all, it takes a lot of time to draw troops from all over the country and mobilize new troops. Without enough time, they simply could not mobilize a strong force against the mighty German army. Report Your Excellency the Grand Duke. After the German vanguard arrived in Amstetten and launched a shelling attack, the defenders retreated. The staff officer Duke Caspar said angrily. If all Austrian armies were like this, there would be no need to fight this battle at all. Because they will not be the opponents of the German army and even have no chance to resist. Arrest the commander of the garrison in Amstetten, send him to the gallows, and deter the entire army. If not, the troops will have no fighting spirit. Archduke Friedrich said. Although, it is not appropriate to hang a senior general at this time. If it is not done well, it will make the generals feel insecure. In that case, this battle will be even more difficult to fight. However, in order to deter those generals and give them the courage to continue fighting, this must be done. Okay, I agree. Duke Caspar said. Baron Marshal Herzendorf also nodded again and again. In addition, I suggest that all the frontline troops be brought to Vienna. If they are deployed to the front line, they will no longer have any effect. It is just a fearless waste. Marshal Herzendorf suggested. Archduke Friedrich and Duke Caspar both nodded in agreement. The Austrian army began to shrink its troops frantically, and at the same time, began to prepare to mobilize more troops. Unable to stop the advance of the German army, they can only hope for the defense of Vienna. It is hoped that in this battle, the confidence and courage of the Austrian army will be aroused, and the Germans will pay a heavy price in Austria, thus gaining a chance for Austria. Although, this possibility is undoubtedly very small. However, for the sake of their country, they can only treat a dead horse as a living horse doctor. Without the interference of the Austrian army, the German army advanced faster. On January 25th, the German 3rd Army and 5th Army arrived in Vienna from the west. The 6th and 7th Armies arrived in Vienna from the north. Chapter 963, The Final Battle. Your Majesty, the German army has appeared to the west and north of Vienna, with the designations of 4 entire armies. That is to say, the main force of these 4 German armies has arrived in Vienna. After deducting their need to defend the logistics supply line and the important there are at least 600,000 German troops in Vienna, Baron Marshal Herzendorf reported to Caroline. Carlyle nodded expressionlessly and didn't say much. Although, at this critical juncture, they should work together to fight against the Germans. However, Caroline was very dissatisfied with these military and political ministers who wanted to abandon him in exchange for the understanding of the Germans. Now, the Germans do not accept their sincerity, and they have no choice but to fight to the end. If they had known earlier, they should not have had the extravagant hope of gaining the understanding of the Germans. After recognizing the essence of these guys, Caroline has no hope for them. Caroline even believed that it was because of the existence of these guys that the Austro-Hungarian Empire fell apart so quickly. Otherwise, as long as the entire Austro-Hungarian Empire can be united, even if it can't beat the Germans, it can at least last for a long time. In that case, there may be variables. Once the United States and other countries join the war against Germany, the Austro-Hungarian Empire may be able to come back. But it was because of these guys that all this came to naught. Regarding the future, Caroline already has plans. Admiral Anton House, the naval commander, has left Vienna for Trieste, the naval base. Once Vienna can't hold on, Caroline will leave here and go to Trieste to join Admiral Anton House. The fleet would then leave Austria-Hungary, sail out of the Mediterranean, enter the Atlantic via Gibraltar, and finally head for the United States. Caroline has decided that, if the Austro-Hungarian Empire is inevitably destroyed, he will not stay as a subjugated king, but will choose to go into exile in the United States. On this point, he has secretly contacted the United States. The United States welcomed him in exile. Although Caroline's reputation in the Austro-Hungarian Empire was not very good, he was the emperor of the Austro-Hungarian Empire after all. At critical times, unexpected effects may occur. For example, one day the United States will have the strength to counterattack the European continent. In that case, you can take Caroline with you, Your Majesty. Now we have assembled 500,000 troops in Vienna. However, the morale of the troops is relatively poor. We hope that His Majesty can stand up and boost the morale of the troops. Let all the people of the Austro-Hungarian Empire know that we have not sent to German people submit. We will be here, resisting them, said Archduke Friedrich. Caroline did not refuse the request of these military giants, nor did he dare to refuse. Although he is the emperor, at this juncture, it is undoubtedly very difficult to say whether these guys will recognize his position as emperor or treat him as an emperor. If it is not done well, it will cause a fierce backlash. In that case, he will still be the one who suffers in the end. Has already made up his mind to leave Vienna and Caroline the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Of course, there will be no problems with these issues. Okay, Your Excellency the Grand Duke. We want all the people of the Austro-Hungarian Empire to unite against the Germans. We want the Germans to pay a heavy price in Vienna. Let them know that they want to annex Austria and want to fight against the Germans. It is impossible to destroy the Austro-Hungarian Empire, Caroline said excitedly, showing great strength. Of course, all of this is just an exercise. The military and political ministers of the Austro-Hungarian Empire are very satisfied with the performance of Caroline in their view. Caroline has many shortcomings. Even his reasons led to the collapse of the Austro-Hungarian Empire this time. However, at the last moment of the collapse of the empire, Caroline was not frightened, but instead showed the courage to fight to the end, which is also commendable. Before the German army launched an offensive, Caroline visited several barracks to boost the morale of the soldiers, hoping that they would fight the Germans desperately for the empire. Though, many of the Austrian troops were intimidated. However, the encouragement of Caroline still encouraged many soldiers of the Austro-Hungarian Empire to muster up their courage and resolve to continue fighting. After the German army arrived in Vienna, it did not immediately launch an offensive. Hundreds of thousands of people gathered in Vienna, requiring a lot of supplies. Moreover, the Austrian army has completed its assembly. This also means that a big battle will start here. The German army must be fully prepared before launching an attack. A large number of trucks from the logistics department are heading to Vienna to transport a large amount of combat materials to Vienna to ensure that the German army can take Vienna smoothly in a very short period of time. In Berlin, the capital of Germany, Qin Tian is very concerned about this attack on Austria. You know, in order to solve the Austro-Hungarian Empire, Germany has been planning for a long time. Well, now, we will soon see the final result. Resolving the Austro-Hungarian Empire will not only increase the population of Germany by more than 10 million to 20 million, but also obtain a vote of protectorate. The surrounding threats are in no other country except Russia. Russia and Germany are now in the honeymoon period. And under the flicker of Germany, the construction of industry and infrastructure is being increased. In a short time, it will not pose a threat to Germany. This allowed Germany to have enough time to digest the benefits gained during the war, especially those new territories and colonies. Germany in the future will become stronger because of this. Your Majesty, our army has arrived in Vienna. The west and north of Vienna are under our siege. The frontline generals ask for instructions whether to completely encircle Vienna. Marshal von Falkenhayn asked. Qin Tian thought for a while, then shook his head. A complete encirclement will make the Austrian army determined to fight to the death. Leaving a gap will make them want to escape. In this case, their resistance will naturally not resist to the end. Gone. Marshal von Falkenhayn nodded. Send a telegram to Marshal Hausen and tell him that the Battle of Vienna will be our last battle against the Austro-Hungarian Empire. I hope that the frontline army can win this battle cleanly at the lowest cost and in the shortest time. Victory, Qin Tian said. Yes, Your Majesty. Marshal von Falkenhayn nodded. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 964, Easy Battle. On January 27th, Marshal Hausen, the commander of the German Third Army, who was also the frontline commander of the war against the Austro-Hungarian Empire, issued an order to attack. After 2 days of rest and recuperation, the German soldiers who had traveled long distances have regained their energy. Both physical and mental strength have returned to their peak. Coupled with the large amount of combat supplies brought in by the logistics force, the time has come for the frontline troops to launch a general attack on Vienna. Fire. Just arrived at 8 o'clock in the morning, the artillery commander gave the order to fire 4 armies, 40 infantry divisions and 4 armor divisions. The artillery of those infantry divisions alone is very powerful. 720 150mm heavy howitzers, 1440 105mm light howitzers, 2160 75mm field guns, a total of more than 4,000 cannons, began to bombard Vienna. Although Vienna is also a world-renowned historical city with a splendid history. However, the German army didn't care about the historical significance of the city at all. In the eyes of these German artillerymen, there is nothing more than a target they are about to destroy. Similarly, the German army has done a lot. For example, Paris, such as London, was also bombed into ruins by the German army. The artillery strength of the Austro-Hungarian Empire is not weak, and the Skoda heavy artillery is famous all over the world. But unfortunately, the Skoda factory is not in Austria, but in the Kingdom of Bohemia. After the German army entered the Kingdom of Bohemia, it immediately occupied the factory. After the war is over, the Krupp factory will be merged here, which will bring the German cannon production capacity and technology to a higher level. Although, the Austrian army is also equipped with some heavy artillery. It's just that most of these heavy artillery are deployed on the border, not in Vienna. Although the heavy artillery is powerful, it is also very cumbersome, which is not conducive to turning in, especially when retreating. Those cumbersome heavy artillery are not easy to take away. When the Austrian army retreated in a hurry, they didn't even have time to take away the logistics supplies, let alone the weapons and equipment. This made those heavy artillery fall into the hands of the German army. Qin Tian has long intended to set up a heavy artillery brigade in each group army to further strengthen the artillery strength of the troops. However, because the heavy artillery is too bulky, unless it can be self-propelled, otherwise, it will be too laborious to be dragged by trucks or mules and horses alone. Boom. 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 Orange flames spewed out from the muzzles of the German army, and the shells roared and smashed towards Vienna. Accompanied by shells falling like raindrops, dense explosions sounded in Vienna. Whether it is the Austrian army positions outside the city or inside the city, there are key targets for German bombardment outside the city. The fortifications of the Austrian army outside the city were not strong in the first place. Digging trenches and building fortifications has never been what the Austrian army is good at. Most of the fortifications they built were being curd projects that looked like goods. It is obviously unrealistic to expect such fortifications to withstand the fierce German shelling. Under the heavy shelling of the German army, these fortifications of the Austrian army were destroyed one after another. Even the officers and soldiers of the Austrian army who hid in the anti-blasting holes were directly buried alive in them. The heavy German shelling made the Austrian soldiers on the defense line terrified and silent, and the morale of the troops was dropping rapidly, even though Emperor Karol of Austria had encouraged them before. But on the battlefield, watching one's comrades in arms be buried alive or blown to pieces by shells is undoubtedly a great test for the spirit of the soldiers. Even well-trained troops may not be able to persist, let alone these Austrian soldiers who were not elite. They even wanted to turn around and run away if they could. However, on the one hand, for this battle, the Austrian army formed a lot of supervising teams. Those supervising teams even set up heavy machine guns directly behind the position, and those who retreated without orders will be shot by the heavy machine guns of the formation team. Rather than dying in the hands of one's own people, it is better to fight the German army desperately. Therefore, most of the Austrian soldiers still stayed in the anti-bunker hole, struggling to support. Another aspect is that the German shelling was too violent. If he escaped from the blast hole, he might die faster. Therefore, even if you want to escape, it is best to wait until the German shelling is over. In that case, it will be relatively safer. The buildings in Vienna were also reduced to ruins under the heavy shelling of the German army. Although, there are many buildings with a long history. However, now it is also turned into ruins, without any difference. Fortunately, after the German army arrived in Vienna, the ordinary residents of Vienna fled here. They knew that, if war broke out here, they might lose their lives. After all, human life is undoubtedly very fragile in war. Even the family members of the ministers of the Austro-Hungarian Empire fled Vienna first. Karol's queen and children were among them. They have already rushed to Trieste one step ahead. At that time, they will leave the Austro-Hungarian Empire on a freighter in advance and head to the United States. Karol will then rush to the United States to join them. After those inhabitants fled, what was left in Vienna was almost an army. This also allowed the German army to have no worries when launching an offensive. The shelling of the German army lasted for 4 hours. Austrian army's position outside Vienna has become a mess. Even the buildings in the city were destroyed a lot. The Austrian artillery also tried to launch a counterattack. However, on the one hand, they are outnumbered. On the other hand, the artillery quality of the Austrian army is far from being comparable to that of the German army. This made the Austrian artillery completely at a disadvantage during the battle, and the losses were very large. In order to reduce losses, Archduke Friedrich, the commander of the Austrian army, had to order the artillery to stop this death. When the German shelling stopped, the German soldiers who had already prepared and had lunch in advance immediately launched an attack. 4 group armies, each invested 2 infantry divisions and armored divisions of each group army. The 200,000 German soldiers, like tigers descending from the mountain, rushed towards the Austrian positions. And those Austrian soldiers who were still in shock and had just walked out of the artillery hole saw the black tanks and the German soldiers who were like wolves and tigers, and they were scared to death immediately. Even the supervisor team could not stop them retreat. The Germans captured the Austrian positions outside Vienna in just one attack. Chapter 965. The Fall of the Empire. In the city of Vienna, in the Austrian General Staff headquarters, in the Underground Command, Archduke Friedrich, Duke Caspar, and Baron Marshal Herzendorf had very ugly faces. They have high hopes for this Battle of Vienna. But now, the performance of the Austrian army is very bad. As far as the German army launched the first wave of attacks, the Austrian army was defeated across the board. Of the 200,000 Austrian troops deployed outside the city, except for a small number who were killed by the fierce German shelling, and some who surrendered to the German army, most of them retreated into the city without any fighting spirit. What's more serious is that those cowards who have been terrified are preaching everywhere about the strength of the German army and how terrifying the German artillery fire is. This made the troops in the city panic. Many troops have expressed that many soldiers are no longer afraid to continue fighting the German army. If this continues, I'm afraid that it will not be long before the Austrian army will not have to fight at all, and they will just surrender to the German army. What should we do now? The troops simply don't have the fighting spirit to continue fighting. If this continues, once the Germans attack the city, we will not be able to resist it at all. Baron Herzendorf said worriedly. Indeed, there is nothing we can do. The Battle of Vienna we expected this time may end in a very bad way. Duke Caspar also said. Obviously, Duke Caspar has no confidence in this battle. The German offensive was too strong, and the Austrians too weak. In addition, they don't even have an advantage in military strength, so the so-called patriotism is of little use in the face of life and death. In any case, the battle has already begun, so it cannot be terminated now. Order the troops in the city to continue to resist. I hope God bless them, they can perform better. Archduke Friedrich sighed. Although, he also notes that the outcome of this battle is probably doomed, but no matter how much dissatisfaction there is no way to do it. Who made their strength completely inferior to Germany. By the way, where is your majesty? Archduke Friedrich asked. His Majesty the Emperor is still staying in the basement of the palace. He seems to think it is safer there. Duke Caspar said. Forget it, let him go. After all, he will soon become the king of subjugation. Archduke Friedrich said. They all knew that the Austro-Hungarian Empire was doomed this time. Karol I, on the other hand, had only been emperor for more than 20 days. At that time, he might become a monarch whose country was destroyed in less than a month after becoming emperor. Such a result can already be recorded in the history books. After the German army captured the outskirts of Vienna, they did not stop attacking. That afternoon, the German army launched an attack on the city of Vienna. In order to speed up the advancement of the troops, several armored divisions also participated in the street fighting. Although, street fighting is very dangerous for armored troops, especially when the armor of the tank is not too strong. The enemy has too many ways to sink the German tank in the street battle. However, the addition of armored troops greatly improved the infantry's attacking ability. At least, when facing the barricades built by the Austrian army, the tanks can advance against the firepower of the Austrian army's machine guns, and then use tank guns to destroy the firepower points of the Austrian army, clear the way for the advancing infantry, and reduce the casualties of the troops. Although, the troops defending Vienna can be regarded as the elite of the Austrian army. But unfortunately, the elite is only a relative term. In front of the German army, these elites of the Austrian army did not have any elites at all. In street fighting, the Austrian army should have had a great advantage. After all, they are more familiar with this place, and they can also use the built fortifications to resist the German army. However, their performance is still not very good. These Austrian troops don't know how to fight street fighting at all. In other words, they have not undergone systematic street fighting training at all. This made them seem at a loss when facing the German attack, or rather, exhausted. Combined with the low morale of the troops, the Austrian army was retreating steadily in the city of Vienna, unable to withstand the German attack at all. In the evening of the 27th, at least 1/3 of Vienna's urban area fell into the hands of the German army. More than 100,000 Austrian officers and soldiers were captured by the Germans. It can be said that the German army gained amazingly during the battle on the 27th. They not only invaded the city of Vienna, but also occupied a large area of the city. More importantly, they have almost defeated the will to fight of the Austrian army. The next battle will undoubtedly become smoother. Marshal Hausen even optimistically believed that perhaps at sunset tomorrow, the whole of Vienna would be able to win. At that time, they will capture all the important ministers of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, including the Emperor of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. At that point, the battle seemed to be over. On the second day, the 28th, the German attack continued as usual. as Marshal Hausen expected. Yesterday's fiasco made the Austrian soldiers even more panicked. Many Austrian soldiers, even hiding in the barricades. But as long as the German army launches an offensive, the first thing they do is not to fire back, but to immediately raise their hands and surrender. These Austrian soldiers have no fighting spirit at all. All they want to do is to save their own lives. The advance speed of the German army is very fast. In just half a day, the German army had occupied most of Vienna's urban area. The remaining part of the city is also located in the east and south of Vienna. It can be said that the German army will occupy the entire Vienna before sunset, which is already a certainty. Forget it. Order the troops to stop resisting. In the eyes of the Germans, our resistance may be a joke at all. Archduke Friedrich said dejectedly. Duke Caspar and Baron Marshal Herzendorf knew what if the resistance of the Austrian army can cause a lot of casualties to the German army, then their resistance is still meaningful. But now, the Austrian army didn't even have the courage to fight on, so naturally there was no need to resist. Half an hour later, Archduke Friedrich, in the name of the commander-in-chief of the Austrian army, issued an order to the Austrian army to surrender. All the Austrian soldiers put down their weapons one after another and surrendered to the Austrian army. The whole of Vienna fell into the control of the German army. The fall of the capital marked the end of the Austro-Hungarian Empire after half a century of existence. Compared with another time and space, it is a little earlier. Chapter 966. Emperor missing. Where is His Majesty the Emperor? If you want to surrender to the Germans, His Majesty the Emperor must come forward. Archduke Friedrich said. I have already sent someone to invite His Majesty the Emperor. However, we surrendered to the Germans before asking His Majesty the Emperor's approval. Doesn't this seem a little bad? Duke Caspar said. The empire has been destroyed, and the emperor will no longer exist. Then, he naturally has no power at all. Archduke Friedrich said. The Germans are going to annex Austria, and they are very clear about this. In fact, although these important ministers of the Austro-Hungarian Empire were a little sentimental about the demise of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, but in fact, it is not too contradictory to Germany's annexation of Austria. If the Austro-Hungarian Empire can continue to exist, it would be the best. In that case, they can be regarded as an independent country after all. However, the Austro-Hungarian Empire has fallen apart, and even Austria will no longer exist. Then, Germany's annexation of Austria is undoubtedly the best result. At least, Germany is now the world's hegemon. After joining Germany, the Austrians were able to enjoy all the rights of citizens of the world power. In addition, most of the people in Austria are Germans. Returning to Germany now is no big deal. If it weren't for His Majesty the Emperor, even if Germany had the intention to deal with us, I'm afraid it would not be so easy to achieve. It is not impossible for the Austro-Hungarian Empire to continue to exist, Baron Herzendorf said. Obviously, for the demise of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, Baron Herzendorf Marshal is still a little brooding. As an important minister single-handedly promoted by the late Emperor Franz Joseph I, he still had great affection for the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Although Franz Joseph I has passed away, however, the Austro-Hungarian Empire founded by Franz Joseph I should not just perish like this. Okay, Your Excellency Chief of Staff, it is useless to say this now. The Austro-Hungarian Empire belongs to the past tense. Grand Duke Friedrich also flashed a trace of sentimentality in his eyes. Although, Karol I was the chief culprit that led to the demise of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. If he hadn't forced the Austro-Hungarian Empire to withdraw from the Allies, Germany would not have found an excuse to attack the Austro-Hungarian Empire. However, this is only on the surface. Even if Karol I did not ask Austria-Hungary to withdraw from the Allies, Germany would definitely find other excuses. At that time, the fate of the Austro-Hungarian Empire may still be like this. Before that, the Germans had already taken action to suppress the Austro-Hungarian Empire. If there is no excuse this time, the Austro-Hungarian Empire will linger on for a few more years at most. Report. We did not find His Majesty the Emperor. An officer reported. Archduke Friedrich, Duke Caspar, Baron Marshal Herzendorf and others were all taken aback for a moment. At this juncture, how could Karol I have disappeared? What's going on? Why can't you find it? Didn't you report that His Majesty the Emperor is in the basement of the palace? Duke Kasbad asked, frowning. Your Excellency, we found that the person staying in the palace is just a substitute for His Majesty the Emperor. The real His Majesty the Emperor has disappeared. The officer replied. What? How did this happen? Where did His Majesty the Emperor go? Archduke Friedrich asked. At the last moment of the demise of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, Karol I, the Emperor, disappeared. This may make the Germans suspicious. At that time, once the Germans pursue it, the problem may become troublesome. Could it be that he was killed in the shelling of the Germans? Baron Marshal Herzendorf asked. Impossible. The palace was not bombarded by the Germans. The Germans were shelling, deliberately avoiding the palace. Not even a single shell fell into the palace, let alone killed His Majesty the Emperor. Alright. Archduke Friedrich shook his head. I think His Majesty the Emperor must have left early. He even planned all this. He fled here when Vienna couldn't hold on. Obviously, His Majesty the Emperor is still not reconciled until now. Duke Kasbah said. You mean, the Emperor went to Trieste? Archduke Friedrich frowned. In his opinion, the Austro-Hungarian Empire has already perished, so there is no need to add extra details. If Karol I was not reconciled and fled to the navy, it would definitely continue to cause turmoil. Even if Karol I fled abroad, then he would definitely spare no effort to provoke conflicts. At that time, Austria will be in turmoil. Your Excellency, His Majesty the Emperor left early, which has nothing to do with us. Even if it is a headache, it should be the turn of the Germans. We only need to tell the Germans that His Majesty the Emperor is missing. As for the escape wherever you go, let the Germans figure out their own way. Duke Kasbah said. It is undoubtedly a very good thing to be able to cause a little trouble for the Germans. Archduke Friedrich thought for a while and finally nodded. On the afternoon of January 28th, the Austrian army held a surrender ceremony at the General Staff headquarters. Archduke Friedrich, representing the Austrian army, surrendered to the German army. Your Excellency Marshal, we have lost this war. Archduke Friedrich lowered his head and handed over his gun. He was originally gray-haired, but his figure is still tall and strong. But now it looks like it's bent a lot. Your Excellency, the war is over, and no one will die for it anymore. Marshal Hausen took over the gun. A large number of Austrian soldiers lined up in a neat queue and handed over their weapons to the German army. For these Austrian prisoners of war, the German army still treats them preferentially and will not let them serve coolies or the like. After all, most of these Austrian prisoners of war were also Germans. After Germany annexed Austria, these prisoners of war were all Germans. Treating your own people is naturally better. In the eyes of the Austrian prisoners of war, there was no sorrow at the fall of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, but only the joy of the rest of their lives. Indeed, they were now at last saving their own lives. This is undoubtedly something that many people are grateful for. For them, the war is finally over. They can go back alive and be reunited with their families. By the way, Your Excellency the Grand Duke, where is His Majesty Emperor Karol I? Marshal Hausen seemed to have heard Karol I, the Emperor of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, at this time. I'm sorry, Your Excellency Marshal. We don't know where the Emperor has gone. When we decided to surrender, we had already sent someone to look for it, but found nothing. Archduke Friedrich replied. Marshal Hausen's complexion suddenly became ugly. Chapter 967, Annex Austria. Come on, arrange for people to search Vienna and its surroundings immediately. Even if you dig 3 feet, you have to find Karol I. Marshal Hausen ordered. Although, Marshal Hausen knew that the possibility of finding Karol I may not be great. Originally, Marshal Hausen hoped to achieve a complete victory. However, now this victory has been discounted, which naturally makes him very dissatisfied. Captured Vienna, and then captured the monarchs and ministers of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Then, there is no doubt that this will be a perfect victory. But unfortunately, Karol I, Emperor of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, disappeared. Marshal Hausen knew that the empire planned to swallow Austria. The existence of Karol I will undoubtedly add some variables to Germany's plan. After all, although Karol I was incompetent, he was the Emperor of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. This was crowned and cannot be changed by anyone. Even if Germany forcibly annexed Austria, there must be some Austrians in it who are still loyal to Caroline, and these will be the unstable factors that Germany needs to face in the future. Yes, Marshal. A general immediately went to make arrangements. Archduke Friedrich on the side heard Marshal Horsen's order, but he didn't care. Even they don't know when Caroline left, so it is certain that Caroline must have fled Vienna a long time ago, not even far from Trieste. It is completely impossible for the German army to catch up with Caroline. However, as Duke Caspar said, this is already a matter for the Germans and has nothing to do with them. The German army captured Vienna and the resistance of the Austrian army stopped. Although, there are still very few soldiers loyal to the Austro-Hungarian Empire, or Austria, who do not surrender. However, it is only a matter of time before the German army will march to the whole of Austria and destroy them. One of the 6 traditional powers in the world, the Austro-Hungarian Empire, the victorious country in the last World War, was destroyed in this way. Such a result exceeded the expectations of the whole world. Of course, when the Austro-Hungarian Empire fell apart, and the Austrian army performed very unbearably, all this has been proved. The capital of Germany, Berlin, has become a sea of joy. The German army once again defeated a powerful country at an extremely small cost, and it was a devastating blow, which made all Germans very excited. They believe more and more that Germany's title as the world's most powerful country is absolutely worthless. Even if the country that was destroyed was once their ally, everyone has fought side by side together. However, it still made the Germans very happy. In the Imperial Palace, the military and political officials of the empire are congratulating Qin Tian. Everyone is also very satisfied with the victory of the German Empire in this war. After all, the war cost Germany almost nothing. After defeating the Austro-Hungarian Empire, everyone is very clear about the benefits it will bring to Germany. It can be said that, because of this battle, Germany's strength can be increased by at least 20%. This is already very difficult for Germany, which is now the world's hegemon. Your Majesty, Vienna has been captured. Our army will march to other parts of Austria. It is estimated that the whole of Austria will be stabilized soon. Marshal von Falkenhayn smiled. Qin Tian nodded. The soldiers on the front line performed very well in this battle. Next, in order to ensure the stability of Austria, our troops may need to be temporarily stationed in Austria for a period of time. We must warn those troops. The Empire Austria will soon be annexed. The people there will also be Germans. Therefore, they must observe military discipline and must not run amok in Austria. The gendarmerie must follow up, and anyone who violates military discipline will be severely punished. Yes, Your Majesty. Marshal von Falkenhayn put away his smiling face and replied with a serious face. Everyone, the Empire will annex Austria next, and the cabinet can formulate a corresponding plan. We destroyed the Austro-Hungarian Empire, which made the Austrians somewhat resentful and dissatisfied with us. In order to ensure that the empire can annex Austria smoothly, we can't cause more trouble at this time. After all, we still count on those Austrians to recognize themselves as Germans. In this way, it makes sense for us to annex Austria. If Austria keeps resisting and riots continue, then there will be big asterisk troubles. At that time, the annexation of Austria will not only not increase our strength, but will become our burden. Qin Tian said solemnly. Yes, Your Majesty. The military and political ministers of the empire all replied. Your Majesty, after our army captured Vienna, we did not find Caroline now. The army has searched in and around Vienna. However, I'm afraid it will be difficult to find it. The Austrian army also claimed that they did not know when Caroline left. Marshal von Falkenhayn continued. Qin Tian couldn't help but frowned. He originally meant that, after capturing Caroline, he abolished his throne and put him under house arrest. In this case, there is almost no problem. However, he did not expect that Caroline would disappear. Forget it. If you don't see it, it will disappear. I guess Caroline wants to escape. Qin Tian said indifferently. Your Majesty, since the Austro-Hungarian Empire has collapsed, Caroline probably won't stay in the Austro-Hungarian Empire anymore. He may flee from the Austro-Hungarian Empire, or even from Europe, to form a government in exile. If he can be caught, that is naturally the best. Prime Minister Bismarck said. Let's take action from the Intelligence Bureau. If Caroline can be caught, that would be great. Qin Tian said. Next, it's time for us to fulfill our promises. The Kingdom of Bohemia and the Kingdom of Hungary can gain independence. However, it must be emphasized that they must become the protectorate of the empire. The other states of the Austro-Hungarian Empire can also be dealt with according to such conditions. Qin Tian said. Yes, Your Majesty. In addition, it is officially announced that Austria will become the eastern province of the empire, under the direct control of the imperial cabinet. All Austrians will automatically obtain the status of Germans. Qin Tian continued. Yes, Your Majesty. On the second day after the German army captured Vienna, the German government announced that Germany would annex Austria from now on. This shocked the whole world, because they know that Germany has become stronger because of this. Chapter 968. I will come back. For Germany's annexation of Austria, countries all over the world were shocked. Especially those countries that are making trouble behind the scenes. There is a feeling that stealing chickens can't lose money. They originally wanted to use the Austro-Hungarian Empire to weaken Germany's strength, but they did not expect that not only failed to weaken Germany's strength, but also made Germany stronger. A more powerful Germany is undoubtedly very threatening to them. This also means that it becomes more difficult for them to defeat Germany. Those most affected by this are naturally the Austrians. Nearly 20 million Austrians suddenly became at a loss. Especially the older ones who have lived their entire lives as an Austrian, a citizen of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Seeing that they were about to go to see God, but now they had to change their identities, which made them somewhat conflicted. Some young people are more acceptable. They see nothing wrong with it. After all, Germany was much stronger and wealthier than Austria-Hungary. The citizens of the world's most powerful country naturally have more status than they do now. Perhaps, after being annexed by Germany, their lives can be a little better because of it. This is very similar to the Mexicans in another time and space. What they hate the United States the most is that, since the United States annexed so much territory in Mexico, why didn't they annex all of Mexico? Then they would not be Mexicans but Americans. Not only will the identity and status be greatly improved, but the living conditions will also be much better. Of course, there are also some Austrians who oppose Austria's incorporation into Germany. They are undoubtedly the dignitaries of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, or those with vested interests. After joining Germany, they will no longer have the status and identity they had in the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and even their interests will be greatly affected. However, these people are relatively small in number, and do not occupy the mainstream. Under the deterrence of Germany's powerful military power, even if they objected, they did not dare to make it clear. Because in that case, there is no doubt that he is courting death. Trieste, the naval base of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, is also the only base of the Austro-Hungarian Navy. Because although the Austro-Hungarian Empire is a big country, its coastline is not long. There are fewer excellent ports, and Trieste can already be regarded as the most suitable port. Almost all the main battleships of the Austro-Hungarian Navy are anchored here. In the naval base, Admiral Anton House, the commander of the Austro-Hungarian Navy, was talking respectfully with a young man. This young man was Caroline, who fled from Vienna to Trieste. Your Majesty, Vienna has fallen, and Archduke Friedrich and the others have surrendered. The whole of Austria has fallen. Admiral Anton House reported. A trace of sadness flashed in Caroline's eyes. His country was doomed. Even if he succeeds in exile in the United States, it is very difficult to say whether he will regain the country one day. The current Caroline, after experiencing a failure, seems to realize how powerful Germany is. On the way from Vienna to Trieste, the news was blocked, and Caroline couldn't help asking himself whether everything he had done was wrong. If he hadn't insisted on going his own way, the Austro-Hungarian Empire might not have fallen to where it is today. However, it is too late to say these now. The Austro-Hungarian Empire no longer exists, and he, the emperor, has become the king of subjugation. If you want to regain all this, you must escape from the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Have the queen and prince left? Caroline asked. Your Majesty, the queen and the prince left 2 days ago. They were on a Swedish freighter. Everything is kept secret, and the Germans don't know about it. Your Majesty, the queen and the prince will arrive in the United States safely, Admiral Anton House said. Caroline nodded. How is the Navy now? Has morale been affected? Your Majesty, the morale of the Navy has indeed been greatly affected. However, the Navy officers and soldiers are all grateful for your Majesty's kindness, and they will not betray your Majesty. However, if the time drags on, the morale of the soldiers will, I'm afraid it will be affected to some extent. If possible, it is better to leave as soon as possible. If it is later, there may be accidents. Admiral Anton House said. Well, how is the situation in Austria? Caroline asked. Although, Caroline also knew that it is best to leave as soon as possible. However, he was still a little worried. This is his country. I don't know if there will be a chance to come back in the future after leaving this time. Of course, Caroline certainly hoped that the United States could defeat Germany in future wars. In that case, his restoration may be successful. If even the United States fails, it is impossible for the Austro-Hungarian Empire to be restored. The Germans have officially announced that they have annexed Austria. In addition, the Kingdom of Bohemia, the Kingdom of Hungary, the Kingdom of Dalmatia, the Kingdom of Croatia, and the Kingdom of Slavonia are all preparing for independence. However, it is said that after independence, they will also become a protectorate of the Germans. General Anton House said. He knew that Caroline was unaware of these news. Damn. Those guys would rather be dogs for the Germans than stay in the Austro-Hungarian Empire and be our state. Caroline said through gritted teeth. Caroline believed that the biggest reason why Austria-Hungary lost the war was the betrayal of these states. If these states do not betray, but support them with all their strength, it is absolutely impossible for them to lose so quickly and so badly. The Austro-Hungarian Empire was, after all, a big country. It is absolutely impossible for such a big country to be destroyed by Germany in just 10 days. This has made the entire Austro-Hungarian Empire the laughingstock of the world. If the Austro-Hungarian Empire has the opportunity to restore in the future, he will definitely not let those states continue to exist and will change them to provinces directly ruled by the central government. Only in this way can the stability of the country be ensured. On the night of January 31st, Caroline boarded the battleship Austro-Hungarian Sovereign, the flagship of the Austro-Hungarian Navy. The Austro-Hungarian Navy, which has completed its assembly, departs from Trieste and prepares to leave the Adriatic Sea for the United States. Standing on the deck of the battleship Austro-Hungarian Monarch, Caroline looked at the land in the distance. I will definitely come back. God will bless me, bless the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Chapter 969, Change Route. The Austro-Hungarian Navy is also considered to be the top navy in the world. In terms of the number of capital ships, it is second only to Germany. Of course, in terms of combat power, I'm afraid it will be ranked behind Germany and the United States. Although the number of capital ships of the US Navy is less than that of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, the battleships of the US Navy are all powerful battleships. The Pennsylvania-class battleships of the US Navy are the class battleship is equipped with 8 406mm main guns with a caliber of 45 times. For the battleships of the Austro-Hungarian Navy, the main guns with the largest caliber are only 350mm main guns with 45 times the caliber of the Austro-Hungarian sovereign battleships. Of course, in terms of performance, it is not even as good as the battleships purchased from Germany. The 343mm main gun with 50 times the caliber. This makes the true combat effectiveness of the Austro-Hungarian Navy far from being comparable to that of the US Navy. The only one that can overwhelm the US Navy is undoubtedly the German Navy. However, this does not prevent the Austro-Hungarian Navy from being able to dominate the small pond in the Mediterranean Sea. Whether it is the Mediterranean fleet of the German Navy or the Turkish Navy, they are far inferior to the Austro-Hungarian Navy in terms of the number of capital ships. Even though every capital ship of the German Navy's Mediterranean fleet is stronger than that of the Austro-Hungarian Navy, the number of capital ships and other small and medium-sized warships of the Austro-Hungarian Navy is more than twice that of the German Navy's Mediterranean fleet. Therefore, if there is a fight, the German Navy's Mediterranean fleet will not take advantage of it and will even pay a relatively large loss. This allowed the German Navy's Mediterranean fleet to maintain restraint before and did not conflict with the increasingly powerful Austro-Hungarian Navy. and this also contributed to the arrogance of the Austro-Hungarian Navy. Your Majesty, it's windy on the deck. You should go back to the cabin. According to the current speed, we will be able to sail out of the Adriatic Sea and enter the Mediterranean Sea tomorrow night. Admiral Anton House said. Karolai shook his head. My body is not so weak. The strength of the Imperial Navy has become much stronger. However, the gap between us and the German Navy has not narrowed. The Germans, once the Austro-Hungarian Empire is destroyed, they will definitely not let our navy go. Will we be able to break out of the Mediterranean Sea by then? Karolai was more worried about this, although the navy of the Austro-Hungarian Empire was not as good as the German Navy. However, if the Austro-Hungarian Navy is allowed to escape, this will inevitably become a serious problem. In particular, if the Austro-Hungarian Navy is united with the US Navy, it will pose a severe challenge to the German Navy. If Karolai was in the position of the Germans, he would definitely destroy the Austro-Hungarian Navy at all costs. This made Karolai very worried about whether they could rush out of the Mediterranean. The expression on Admiral Anton House's face also became serious. Your Majesty, we have indeed received news that the Germans are gathering their naval strength in the Mediterranean. Although the strength of the Imperial Navy is much stronger than before, it is far from enough to fight against the German Navy. However, Your Majesty, please don't worry. Even if the Germans really come to intercept us, I guarantee that His Majesty will be safely sent to the United States. Admiral Anton House had a look of determination. He knew in his heart that the German Navy would inevitably intercept them. At that time, it will be almost impossible to break through the blockade of the German Navy, enter the Atlantic Ocean, and then reach the United States. The Austro-Hungarian Navy will inevitably suffer heavy losses in this battle. Admiral Anton House also felt very uncomfortable when he thought that the navy that had finally become stronger would suffer heavy losses. However, their most important task now is to send His Majesty Karolai to the United States. Even if the navy is completely lost for this, as long as Karolai can reach the United States safely, it is worth it. Admiral Anton House had planned. Once there is a war with the German Navy, send Karolai to the light cruiser or destroyer, and let the light cruiser or destroyer rush out of the theater at high speed. Although such a plan is a bit risky, it is undoubtedly their only way. Karolai shook his head. If the navy is gone, and I go to the United States alone, what's the use? Your Majesty, there is still hope for the navy to break out of the Mediterranean Sea. As long as we break out of the Mediterranean Sea, we will be safe. The main force of the US Navy is already on its way to the Eastern Atlantic Ocean. Perhaps we will be able to get their support as soon as we break out of the Mediterranean Sea. It's gone. Admiral Anton House explained. He knew that relying solely on the strength of the Austro-Hungarian Navy would not be able to survive this crisis. But if the power of the US Navy can be used, it may be completely different. Karolai was still not very satisfied with this. According to the voyage of the Austro-Hungarian Navy, it started from the Trieste base, went out of the Adriatic Sea, and entered the Mediterranean Sea, and then went all the way west, entering the Atlantic Ocean through the Strait of Gibraltar. Go west again, join the US Navy, and head to the United States. It's just that, in Karolai's view, the danger along the way is too great. The main danger is the German blockade. Germany must have assembled a strong naval force in the Western Mediterranean, and is ready to intercept them. In addition, the Germans also deployed powerful fortress guns in the fortress of Gibraltar. By then, the entire fortress was under the blow of the German shore fire. In this case, to forcibly break through the Strait of Gibraltar, not only must break through the interception of the German Navy, but also have to pass through the Strait of Gibraltar blocked by German firepower. All this is too dangerous. Karolai hoped that there could be a safer and safer way. In this case, he will be able to reach the United States safely. At the same time, it was also able to keep the main force of the Austro-Hungarian Navy. Only in this way, even if he goes to the United States, he will be valued by the Americans, and he will not become a downcast king of subjugation. That kind of life is obviously not what he wants. Let's change the route. After leaving the Adriatic Sea, instead of heading west, turn east, pass through the Suez Canal, and enter the Indian Ocean. Then go south, bypass the Cape of Good Hope, and enter the Atlantic Ocean, and then head to the United States. Karolai said. Chapter 970. The Navy is dispatched. Although Caroline's voice was not loud, there was an unquestionable tone in his words. Obviously, on this issue, he has already decided. Your Majesty, if this is the case, we will have to take a long detour. The supplies we carry may not be enough, Admiral Anton House said. The speed of supply ships is generally not fast, so Admiral Anton House selected 2 newly built supply ships this time. Only in this way can they keep up with the speed of the fleet. Each warship also carried as much fuel and other supplies as possible to ensure that the fleet could reach the United States. If you want to go to the Indian Ocean through the Suez Canal and then go around the Cape of Good Hope, it will save a long way. Their supplies were simply not enough to support the arrival of the fleet. Contact the Americans. Let them prepare supplies for us. If our fleet can reach the United States safely, the Americans are absolutely willing to help us, Caroline said. Admiral Anton House nodded. If the Austro-Hungarian Navy can reach the United States safely, it will be very beneficial to the United States. Let the Americans prepare some supplies for the Austro-Hungarian Navy. The Americans will naturally be very willing. Your Majesty, should the US Navy go south to the Cape of Good Hope to meet us? Admiral Anton House said. It depends on the situation. The main fleet of the US Navy is in the eastern waters of the Atlantic Ocean. If the Germans can be held back, let them stay in the eastern waters of the Atlantic Ocean. If the Germans go south to intercept us, they will just go south. In addition, it is not necessary to go to the Cape of Good Hope. If the German interception force is too strong, we will cross the Indian Ocean, enter the South Pacific Ocean, then cross the South Pacific Ocean into the Atlantic Ocean, and then go north from the South Atlantic Ocean to reach the United States. The more Caroline said, the more excited he became, as if he was happy that he could think of such a good way. Admiral Anton House couldn't help frowning tightly together. If it really followed the last route that Caroline said, it would have circled a very large circle, almost half of the world. However, he had to admit that it would be safer then. The ocean is infinitely vast. Even if a huge fleet enters it, it is very difficult to find it. At that time, it will be very difficult for the German Navy to pursue the Austro-Hungarian Navy. Yes, Your Majesty, just do as you say. Admiral Anton House did not dwell on this issue. Caroline breathed a sigh of relief. In this case, as long as our fleet can enter the Indian Ocean, the Germans will not be able to catch up with us. The next voyage will be the most dangerous. Your Majesty, it will not be so easy for the Germans to catch up with us. We set off overnight, and even if the Germans find out that the fleet is gone, they will have to wait until tomorrow. By then, we will be within a short distance of the exit of the Adriatic Sea. It's not far away. If the main force of the German Navy comes from near Gibraltar, it will take time, Admiral Anton House said. Caroline nodded and prayed to God with a voice that Admiral Anton House could not hear. May God bless me and bless the Austro-Hungarian Navy. Although Caroline was very devout, however, from beginning to end, God didn't seem to have blessed him at all, as if he had been completely forgotten. The movement of the Austro-Hungarian Navy has always been the object of attention of the German Navy. Emperor Qin Tian of the Empire has issued an order to wipe out the Austro-Hungarian Navy in the Mediterranean Sea. Therefore, the German Navy assembled the 3 fleets of the Home Fleet, the Mediterranean Fleet, and the Indian Ocean Fleet, preparing to eat the Austro-Hungarian Navy in one fell swoop. Because the aircraft carrier fleet will stay in the Atlantic Ocean to deal with the US Navy. Therefore, the battle against the Austro-Hungarian Navy can only be handed over to the capital ships of the fleet, and this will also be the largest duel between battleships after the last World War. As for whether there will be large-scale capital ship duels in the future, it is hard to say. After all, the German Navy has already determined the future naval development plan with the aircraft carrier as a core. As for other countries, I'm afraid that they will not slow down their exploration in this field. Therefore, future naval battles are likely to use aircraft carriers as the main force. The role of the capital ship will be greatly reduced, which will also cause the capital ship to retreat to the second line. The 3 major fleets of the German Navy are assembled. The number of capital ships alone is a full 22 ships, which is 8 more than the Austro-Hungarian Navy. Moreover, every capital ship of the German Navy is stronger than the capital ship of the Austro-Hungarian Navy. Not to mention, there are also 4 Caesar-class battleships equipped with 410mm main guns. It can be said that with the strength of the 3 major fleets assembled by the German Navy, it will completely beat the Austro-Hungarian Navy. Because the Austro-Hungarian Navy left at night, German spies did not notice it immediately. When the next day dawned, German spies secretly boarded a hill near the Trieste naval base and found that the port was empty and the naval warships of the Austro-Hungarian Empire that had been moored densely at the pier had all disappeared. Damn. When did the fleet of the Austro-Hungarian Navy leave? Yesterday evening. They were still in the port. Damn it. They escaped last night. The spy couldn't help but cursed. Immediately, he did not hesitate to expose and immediately sent a telegram to the country. When the telegram was delivered to the Secretary of the Navy Reinhard Scheer, Marshal Reinhard Scheer's face changed drastically. He immediately ordered a telegram to be sent to the main fleet of the German Navy gathered in the Mediterranean Sea, ordering them to immediately march to the Adriatic Sea, preparing to intercept the Austro-Hungarian Navy. If the Austro-Hungarian Navy did not surrender, they could be sunk. On the battleship Kaiser, the flagship of the German Navy's home fleet, the commander of the home fleet, Admiral Hipper, is also the commander of the combined fleet consisting of 3 fleets. After Admiral Hipper received the telegram from Admiral Reinhard Scheer, he immediately issued an order to the entire United Fleet. Order all warships, set off immediately. The Austro-Hungarian Navy set off last night. We need to catch up, block them, and kill them all. Admiral Hipper ordered. As for the surrender of the Austro-Hungarian Navy, Admiral Hipper knew that it was unrealistic. The Austro-Hungarian Navy will definitely not surrender, so they have to get rid of them. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 971, Abnormal Situation. Your Majesty, our intelligence personnel discovered that the Austro-Hungarian Navy had left the Trieste naval base last night. I have ordered the United Fleet to pursue it. Such a big thing happened, Reinhard. Of course Admiral Scheer didn't dare to be negligent and immediately rushed to the palace to report to Qin Tian. Has the Austro-Hungarian Navy finally moved? The information obtained by the intelligence agency also shows that Karolai has also gone to the Trieste naval base. I think that Karolai should be in the Austro-Hungarian Navy at this moment, Qin Tian said. Marshal Reinhard Scheer nodded. Judging from the information he has obtained now, the possibility of Karolai being in the fleet is undoubtedly very high. Send a telegram to General Hipper. This time, the Austro-Hungarian Navy must be dealt with no matter what. If they are sensible and can surrender, that would be the best. If they don't surrender, then kill them all. As for Karolai, it doesn't matter whether he lives or dies, Qin Tian said. Although, Karolai can be regarded as Qin Tian's opponent. However, Qin Tian did not approve of this opponent. In his opinion, Karolai was nothing like an emperor except for being headstrong and conceited. Although, because of Karolai, the pig-like opponent, Germany was able to quickly destroy the Austro-Hungarian Empire. However, he still kept counting on letting Karolai go. If Karolai could be captured, what awaited him would probably be imprisoned for a lifetime. If you can't capture him, then send him to **** directly. For the benefit of the country, Qin Tian would not hesitate to bear the infamy even for this. Yes, Your Majesty. Marshal Reinhard Scheer nodded. Of course he is very clear that Germany wants to annex Austria in a stable manner and then gradually digest it so that Karolai can let it continue to exist. Otherwise, this will always bury some security risks. Without the assistance of the aircraft carrier, will the combined fleet be able to eat the Austro-Hungarian Navy this time? Qin Tian asked. In this regard, he is more or less worried. After all, the Austro-Hungarian Navy is not weak. Although it is not as good as the German Navy, it can be regarded as the overlord of the Mediterranean. There are too many decisive factors in naval battles, and if you are a little careless, problems may arise. Your Majesty, even without the assistance of the aircraft carrier fleet, we will assemble the three main fleets and eliminate the Austro-Hungarian navy. There will be no problems. As for casualties, there may be, but it will definitely not be too big. Marshal Reinhard Scheer is very confident in the combat effectiveness of the United Fleet. After all, when the three major fleets add up, they already have a great advantage in the number of capital ships. Not to mention, every battleship can crush any battleship of the Austro-Hungarian navy. In particular, the 50 caliber 410mm main guns of the 4 Caesar-class battleships can tear through the armor of all capital ships, severely damage or even sink them. With such a powerful fleet, the Austro-Hungarian navy wanted to escape from the Mediterranean. It was simply a dream. Qin Tian nodded in reassurance. Although the strength of the German navy is #1 in the world, it is still a bit stretched if it is to be deployed in the world's oceans. This time, in order to deal with the Austro-Hungarian navy, the German navy had to gather more than 60% of the power of the aircraft carrier fleet. Even the Atlantic Fleet and aircraft carrier fleet were deployed in the Atlantic to contain the US Navy and indirectly participated in this battle. Although the German Navy has established the aircraft carrier as the main direction of future development, however, subject to the impact of technology, there are still great restrictions on the range and ammunition load of carrier-based aircraft. Therefore, the combat effectiveness of the aircraft carrier cannot really be brought into play. Once the carrier-based aircraft can attack targets hundreds of kilometers away and can carry heavy aviation armor-piercing bombs and heavy aviation torpedoes, that is the time for aircraft carriers to dominate the ocean. At that time, the German Navy can use these aircraft carriers to further establish maritime supremacy. Of course, that will also make future naval battles even more tragic. In the Mediterranean Sea, the German Navy combined fleet has set off from Gibraltar to integrate warships from the home fleet, the Mediterranean Fleet, and the Indian Ocean Fleet. 4 Kaiser-class battleships, 4 Brandenburg-class battlecruisers, 4 Helgoland-class battleships, 3 Moltke-class battlecruisers, 4 Nassau-class battleships and 3 Blücher-class battlecruisers. Together with other small and medium warships, the size of the entire fleet has exceeded 150 ships. Facing the Austro-Hungarian navy, it has an overwhelming advantage. After leaving the Gibraltar naval base, the German Navy combined fleet immediately accelerated to the Adriatic Sea. However, although the speed of the fleet has increased to 18 knots, however, it is obviously impossible to intercept the Austro-Hungarian navy before they leave the Adriatic Sea. This made Admiral Hipper have to order the fleet to prepare for encountering the Austro-Hungarian navy. Moreover, many light cruisers and destroyers were dispatched to speed up and go out to a place hundreds of kilometers ahead of the fleet. Once the Austro-Hungarian navy is found, the main force of the fleet can be notified immediately to prepare for battle. In addition, Admiral Hipper brought orders to deploy light warships and submarines in the waters at the junction of the Adriatic Sea and the Mediterranean Sea, and paid close attention to the movements of the Austro-Hungarian navy. At the same time, seaplanes from Sicily also flew to the Adriatic Sea to closely monitor the Austro-Hungarian navy. On the evening of February 1st, Admiral Hipper received news that the Austro-Hungarian navy was about to sail out of the Adriatic Sea and into the Mediterranean Sea. At this time, the combined fleet of the German Navy had just arrived in the Balearic Islands. There are still thousands of kilometers away from the Adriatic Sea. Originally, Admiral Hipper didn't care. He believed that, as long as the Austro-Hungarian navy wanted to enter the Atlantic Ocean through the Strait of Gibraltar, it would definitely meet them. However, what he never imagined was that at the request of Kareli, the Austro-Hungarian navy had changed its route. It did not plan to enter the Atlantic Ocean through the Strait of Gibraltar, but planned to bypass the Indian Ocean and then enter the Atlantic Ocean or Pacific Ocean depending on the situation. At 11 o'clock that night, the Austro-Hungarian navy entered the Mediterranean Sea. 2 destroyers of the German navy followed them from afar. However, when they discovered that the Austro-Hungarian navy did not turn west, but sailed east, they also realized that something was wrong, and immediately reported this abnormality to the flagship. Chapter 972, Chase. On the battleship Caesar, the flagship of the United Fleet, the commander, Admiral Hipper, has already rested. This class of new Kaiser-class battleships of the German Navy was built and refitted on the Lion-class battleships that the British had already completed half of the hull. The warship design of the British Navy has always focused on enjoyment. The captain's cabin not only has a good sized lounge, but also an office. This is undoubtedly very good on a battleship. Admiral Hipper is also very satisfied with this. However, after the continued construction of the Caesar-class battleship, the German Navy no longer started building battleships. This made Admiral Hipper, who had spent most of his life on the battleship, very reluctant to part with it. However, they also know that the German Navy will build more aircraft carriers in the future, because aircraft carriers are the mainstream in the future and will help the German Navy win the next more intense naval battle. Therefore, not only did they not prevent aircraft carriers from replacing capital ships and becoming the main force of the Navy, but they pushed forward as much as possible. However, Admiral Hipper and others still hope that the huge main fleet owned by the German Navy can contribute its own strength in future naval battles. Bang bang. There was a knock on the hatch. Admiral Hipper turned over from the bed at once. He quickly put on his pants and clothes and then opened the hatch. What happened? Brigadier General, Admiral Hipper asked. General, the Austro-Hungarian Navy has already left the Adriatic Sea and entered the Mediterranean Sea. However, they did not sail westward, but sailed eastward. Brigadier General Barold, the captain of the battleship Caesar, reported road. Admiral Hipper was stunned for a moment, and he also felt that this question might be more troublesome. Admiral Hipper and Brigadier General Barold quickly went to the command tower. Lieutenant General Richterfeld, Chief of Staff of the local fleet, Lieutenant General Morth, Commander of the Mediterranean Fleet, Major General Reeder, Chief of Staff, Lieutenant General Engineer, Commander of the Indian Ocean Fleet, and Major General Ruiter, Chief of Staff, have all arrived. Obviously, this abnormal behavior of the Austro-Hungarian Navy caused major problems in the German Navy's plan. Your Excellency, the Austro-Hungarian Navy has given up its westward advance. Obviously, they did not want to enter the Atlantic Ocean through the Strait of Gibraltar, but chose other means. It now appears that they want to force their way into the Suez Canal and then pass through the canal entered the Indian Ocean. Lieutenant General Richterfeld said. Admiral Hipper nodded. This is undoubtedly a very difficult problem. Once the Austro-Hungarian Navy enters the Indian Ocean, it will be even more difficult for us to catch them. After they enter the Indian Ocean, they can pass through the Cape of Good Hope entering the Atlantic Ocean. You can also bypass Australia to enter the Western Pacific Ocean, and then bypass South America to enter the Atlantic Ocean. This will cause great problems for our pursuit. Originally, Admiral Hipper thought this naval battle, although it was a little dangerous, but with the strength of the combined fleet of the German Navy, it is completely enough to crush the Austro-Hungarian Navy. So, they won't have any problem. At most, it will pay a certain amount of casualties. But now it seems that the Austro-Hungarian Navy is not going to sit still. Knowing that they are not as powerful as the German Navy, they will not come to die foolishly, but choose a detour in an attempt to get rid of the pursuit of the German Navy. Your Excellency, Commander, can you order our garrison at the Suez Canal to intercept the Austro-Hungarian Navy? Lieutenant General Engineer asked. Admiral Hipper shook his head. We are in the Suez Canal, and there is only one regiment of security forces. They only have a dozen 75mm field guns. Let them use those field guns to deal with the Austro-Hungarian Navy. Obviously it's impossible. If we had known earlier, we shouldn't have rushed to Gibraltar too early. If we stayed in the eastern Mediterranean waters, we could stop the Austro-Hungarian Navy. We can even use the terrain to intercept the northern Red Sea and the southern end of the Suez Canal. The Austro-Hungarian Navy, Admiral Ingenuel sighed. Although the Indian Ocean Fleet is not as powerful as the Austro-Hungarian Navy. However, the Red Sea is narrow, and the Suez Canal can only allow a single battleship of the Austro-Hungarian Navy to pass through. As long as they deploy a few capital ships at the mouth of the canal, they can block it tightly. The Austro-Hungarian Navy entered the Red Sea through the canal, only to be blocked there by them. It's just that it's too late to say these things now. The actions of the Austro-Hungarian Navy were indeed beyond our expectations. They actually gave up the shortest route into the Atlantic Ocean, chose to give up the first time, to join the US Navy, but chose to take a long way. Now, we have no other. Fortunately, the capital ships of the Austro-Hungarian Navy are not too fast. In particular, their United Force class battleships have a maximum speed of only 20 knots. So far in service, they can guaranteeing a speed of more than 18 knots is already blessed by God. On the other hand, our warships are all cutting-edge warships. Even if the speed is increased to 23 or 24 knots, there is no problem at all. In this case, we can close the distance with them by 5 knots every hour. In one day, it is more than 200 kilometers. In this way, we can catch up with them in a week at most. From the Adriatic Sea and the Mediterranean Sea, it is almost 2,000 kilometers from the border sea area to the Suez Canal. We are enough to shorten the distance to half. If we are lucky, we will be able to catch up with them when the Austro-Hungarian Navy just passed through the Red Sea. Admiral Hipper said, "This is the most stupid way, but also the most effective way." The German Navy could only pursue the Austro-Hungarian Navy with the help of the speed advantage of the warships. The other generals nodded again and again, approving this plan. Order our base in Egypt to prepare enough supplies. At that time, we need to carry out a supply. In addition, in the Indian Ocean Fleet, prepare a batch of supplies and use transport ships to send them to the Gulf of Aden and hide them. If the time comes, if we have not fought a decisive battle with the Austro-Hungarian Navy, we can resupply the fleet. Admiral Hipper ordered. "Yes, Your Excellency, Commander." Lieutenant General Ingenol nodded. "In addition, we must not lose the Austro-Hungarian Navy. Especially before they enter the Indian Ocean. If they have not caught up with them, we must not lose it. Otherwise, when they enter the Indian Ocean, and we lost them even more, so it will be even more difficult to stop them." Admiral Hipper looked serious. Chapter 973, Dilemma. In order to catch up with the Austro-Hungarian Navy, the combined fleet of the German Navy began to speed up. Originally, the fleet cruised at a speed of 15 knots. Because it was thought that the Austro-Hungarian Navy would sail westward. In this case, just wait for them to deliver it to your door. However, now the Austro-Hungarian Navy is trying to escape from another direction. In order to prevent the cooked duck from flying, the combined fleet of the German Navy had to speed up the pursuit. Fortunately, the capital ships of the German Navy are almost all cutting-edge warships. The maximum speed of those battleships is generally above 25 knots. For those battle cruisers, the maximum speed can be increased to more than 28 knots. If the boiler is forced to ventilate, it is not difficult to increase the speed to 30 knots. It's just that such a state can't last long, otherwise, the boiler may explode. As for those small and medium-sized warships, the speed is all above 30 knots. Therefore, it is not a problem for the entire fleet to increase the speed to 23 knots, and there is even room to spare. Although, the distance between the combined fleet of the German Navy and the Navy of the Austro-Hungarian Empire is more than 1,000 kilometers. However, with the full pursuit of the German Navy, their distance is rapidly shrinking. Moreover, the Austro-Hungarian Navy knew nothing about it. In Berlin, Germany, Qin Tian was also awakened from his deep sleep. Admiral Reinhard Scheer, the Minister of the Navy, had an audience overnight, and it was obvious that there was a big problem with the United Fleet. "Your Majesty, I'm very sorry to interrupt your est." Marshal Reinhard Scheer apologized. Before, he also vowed to guarantee that the combined fleet will definitely be able to crush the Austro-Hungarian Navy. But I didn't expect that there would be such a big problem now. What happened? Qin Tian didn't blame Marshal Reinhard Scheer for his disturbed sleep. "That's right, Your Majesty. The Austro-Hungarian Navy did not sail westward as we expected, but turned eastward. The joint fleet judged that the Austro-Hungarian Navy chose to pass through Gibraltar instead of entering the Atlantic Ocean, Suez Canal, to the Indian Ocean, then from the Indian Ocean to the Atlantic Ocean, and finally to the United States." Marshal Reinhard Scheer said. Qin Tian couldn't help but frowned. Of course, he could see that the Austro-Hungarian Navy chose such a route, and of course it would take a long way to go. However, it also caused a lot of trouble for the pursuit of the German Navy. How long will it take for the combined fleet to catch up with the Austro-Hungarian Navy? Qin Tian asked. Your Majesty, at this moment, the combined fleet is more than 1,000 kilometers away from the Austro-Hungarian Navy. However, General Hipper has ordered the fleet to speed up to 23 knots. At this speed, it will be able to catch up with the Austro-Hungarian Navy in a week at the latest. Gone. A week? According to the speed of the Austro-Hungarian Navy, they have already entered the Red Sea and are even about to enter the Indian Ocean. However, with the strength of the combined fleet, even if the Austro-Hungarian Navy escapes, they will definitely be able to catch up with them. I think it shouldn't be a big problem. Qin Tian said optimistically. Yes, Your Majesty. General Hipper has made a complete plan. This time, it is absolutely impossible to let the Austro-Hungarian Navy escape. Marshal Rienhardshire said through gritted teeth. The Austro-Hungarian Navy still refused to submit obediently at this time, but chose to fight against the beast, which made Marshal Rienhardshire very speechless. The Austro-Hungarian Navy, this is clearly causing trouble for the German Navy. Of course, the Austro-Hungarian Navy did this only for their own survival. The perspectives and positions of the two sides are different, and the way of thinking about the problem is naturally different. That's how it is. I have confidence in General Hipper and the United Fleet. He will definitely be able to deal with the Austro-Hungarian Navy. Qin Tian said. Yes, Your Majesty. Marshal Rienhardshire breathed a sigh of relief when he heard Qin Tian say this. On the Mediterranean Sea, the Austro-Hungarian Navy is heading east. Your Majesty, the German destroyer is still following us. The news of our change of course may have been leaked. The German Navy may have increased its speed and started chasing us. Admiral Anton House was a little worried. The Germans will probably be surprised when they learn that we are not sailing westward, but eastward. I really hope to see their shocked faces. Caroline said with a smile, as if for his wit feel happy. Let them chase after us. We are thousands of kilometers away from the German fleet. By the time they catch up, we have already passed the Suez Canal and entered the Red Sea. We have even entered the Indian Ocean. By then, it will be even easier to get rid of the Germans. Caroline said nonchalantly. As for the German destroyers tracking us, send a fleet to disperse them. Those destroyers are like flies. It is really annoying. Caroline continued. Yes, Your Majesty. Admiral Anton House nodded. The Austro-Hungarian Navy sent a group of light cruisers and destroyers to drive off the destroyers of the German Navy. However, the destroyers of the German Navy took advantage of their speed and quickly avoided it. Several times in a row, the Austro-Hungarian Navy was powerless to do anything about it. In the absence of a solution, we can only acquiesce in the tracking of the German Navy. Only when you pass through the Suez Canal wide-eyed, think of a way. 3 days later, the Austro-Hungarian Navy entered the Suez Canal. Facing the powerful Austro-Hungarian Navy, neither Egypt nor the German security forces stationed in the canal zone could stop them, and could only watch the Austro-Hungarian Navy pass through the canal. Even when the Austro-Hungarian Navy passed through the canal, it fired at the barracks of the security forces, and destroyed the barracks. Fortunately, the security forces were notified in advance and withdrew from the camp. Otherwise, there will definitely be greater casualties. During this process, the combined fleet of the German Navy has been catching up. They successfully shortened the speed by more than 600 kilometers. However, the distance between the two sides is still more than 600 kilometers. After the Austro-Hungarian Navy passed through the Suez Canal, Admiral Anton House proposed a plan. That is, the Austro-Hungarian Navy would leave a few battleships and take advantage of the terrain advantage at the mouth of the canal to stop the German Navy here. The escape of the main fleet of the Austro-Hungarian Navy buys time. However, Caroline was hesitant because he didn't want the Austro-Hungarian Navy to pay too much loss. Chapter 974, Can't Escape. Your Majesty, the bay at the southern mouth of the Suez Canal is very narrow, only about 5 kilometers wide. We only need to leave 3 to 4 battleships to completely block the bay. Moreover, we can gather all our firepower to target the mouth of the canal. Once you find the German warship, open fire immediately. Even the German capital ship may not be able to resist such concentrated fire. Admiral Anton House suggested. Do we need to keep so many capital ships? We only have 16 capital ships. If we keep 4, it is equivalent to leaving a quarter of our strength. Caroline was a little bit reluctant. The Austro-Hungarian Empire has collapsed, and they are now people who have left their homeland. Their navy also loses one warship. If it loses one warship, and it will never be replenished. This time leaving so many battleships, Caroline was reluctant. Your Majesty, there is no way. If we don't try to stop the Germans from pursuing us, we may be caught up by them. At that time, it will be very difficult for us to escape. The Germans are probably not far away from us now. Our fleet is not fast due to the low speed of those old warships. I'm afraid it will be very easy for the Germans to catch up. Admiral Anton House persuaded. What warships do you need to keep? Caroline asked. The 4 Caesar-class battleships we purchased from the Germans last time, all remain. Admiral Anton House said. What? Those 4 warships are our elite. The reluctance in Caroline's eyes became even stronger. Although, the Austro-Hungarian Navy built 4 Austro-Hungarian Monarch-class battleships. But both Caroline and General Anton House knew it. In fact, the 4 Caesar-class battleships purchased from the Germans are the most powerful battleships in the Austro-Hungarian Navy. Although I don't want to admit it, even the 3 Moltke-class battlecruisers are more powerful than their Austro-Hungarian Sovereign-class battleships. Therefore, abandoning the 4 most powerful capital ships is even more unacceptable to Caroline. Your Majesty, the German capital ships are almost all cutting-edge capital ships, and their defenses are very strong. If the capital ships with too weak firepower are left behind, I'm afraid they will not be able to penetrate the armor of the German capital ships. It doesn't make any sense. Admiral Anton House explained. Can the Caesar-class battleship we bought from the Germans penetrate the armor of the German new Kaiser-class battleship? Caroline asked. Admiral Anton House thought for a while, then shook his head. Your Majesty, I'm afraid this will not work. The main guns of the German new Kaiser-class battleships have a caliber of 410 mm. The important armor thickness is also 400 mm. The 50 times the caliber and 343 mm equipped on the Kaiser-class battleships we bought from the Germans may not be able to penetrate the armor of the German new Kaiser-class battleships. So, this means that, if the Germans let the powerful new Kaiser-class battleships take the lead when passing through the canal, then even leaving 4 Caesar-class battleships behind will have no effect. They will be quickly sunk under the crush of the powerful German battleship. Caroline said. Admiral Anton House suddenly didn't know what to say. The actual situation is, just as Caroline said. Your Majesty, in that case, we can at least buy us some time. We can get rid of the pursuit of the Germans, and enter the Indian Ocean. Admiral Anton House said. Caroline shook his head. Our current strength is limited. Every naval officer, and every warship is precious to us. After losing our motherland, we can no longer get supplements. Therefore, we cannot abandon our warships and officers and men at will. Speed up the fleet as much as possible. As long as we can enter the Indian Ocean before the Germans catch up, we can get out safely. Admiral Anton House saw that Caroline was very resolute, so he sighed and stopped insisting. However, in order to avoid being followed by the destroyers of the German Navy, Admiral Anton House still left 2 light cruisers and 2 destroyers to intercept the destroyers of the German Navy. However, after only 1 day, the 2 light cruisers and 2 destroyers of the Austro-Hungarian Navy were dealt with. The vanguard of the German Navy's combined fleet, a formation of 4 light cruisers and 4 destroyers, has already passed through the Suez Canal. The main force of the United Fleet has also reached the northern part of the canal and began to cross the canal. After Admiral Anton House learned the news, he immediately reported to Caroline. Your Majesty, the Germans may have caught up. The light cruisers and destroyers we left in Suez Bay have been attacked by the Germans and have been sunk. Admiral Anton House reported. Caroline was silent for a moment, and now their fleet is still in the Red Sea. The Red Sea is very narrow and long, with a length of 2,100 kilometers. At the speed of the Austro-Hungarian Navy, it would take at least 3.5 days to cross it. Do we need poisoned wine to cross the Red Sea? Asked Caroline. At least a little more than 2 days. Admiral Anton House replied. When will the Germans catch up? It is estimated that they will be able to catch up with us not long after we left the Red Sea. In other words, the Germans rushed over as soon as our fleet entered the Indian Ocean from the Gulf of Aden. However, the German light warships will come first. Follow us. Admiral Anton House looked worried. He knew that this time the Austro-Hungarian navy might not be able to escape. Once caught up by the German navy, the war will inevitably break out. The strength of the Austro-Hungarian navy was originally much weaker than that of the German navy. Therefore, the final result is very likely to be the result of their defeat by the German navy, or even annihilation of the entire army. Caroli's face was also very ugly. After the country was destroyed, he had only one goal, which was to lead the Austro-Hungarian navy to the United States, and then with the support of the Americans, continue to resist Germany, and strive to fight back to Europe one day, defeated Germany, and restored their own country. But now it seems that they cannot escape. His goal will no longer be possible. Chapter 975, Unavoidable Duel. Command the fleet, keep going. If you are overtaken by the Germans, then fight them. The Austro-Hungarian Empire has been destroyed by the Germans. If we are overtaken by the Germans, we will have to fight them to the end. Wish God bless us, said Caroli. Yes, Your Majesty. Admiral Anton House nodded. When there is no other way, fighting to the death has indeed become the only choice. The army of the Austro-Hungarian Empire was too soft, and it surrendered easily under the attack of the Germans. However, the navy is different. Their fighting will is far stronger than that of the army. They are also more loyal to the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Admiral Anton House believes that, even if their strength is not as good as the German navy, however, after being caught up by the German navy, they will also fight the German navy to the end. However, His Majesty Caroli must be safely sent to the United States. Admiral Anton House has decided to secretly send Caroli away tonight. Because he was worried that Caroli would object, Admiral Anton House began to imagine how to send Caroli away. That night, after Caroli had dinner, he felt dizzy after not staying for long. So, after greeting Admiral Anton House, he went to rest in his cabin. After a while, he fell into a deep sleep. An hour later, Caroli's cabin was opened. At this moment, Caroli had already passed out, as if he was a dead pig. In fact, this is because Admiral Anton House put sleeping pills in Caroli's dinner. Caroli was carried out of the cabin and sent to a light cruiser. Admiral Anton House asked the captain of the light cruiser to ensure that Caroli was safely sent to the United States. The light cruiser will then speed up to leave the Austro-Hungarian navy and enter the Indian Ocean first. Then, cross the Indian Ocean into the South Pacific, then cross the South Pacific into the South Atlantic, and finally go north all the way to the United States. Admiral Anton House gave the captain of the light cruiser a death order. No matter what order Caroli gave, after he woke up, he was not allowed to obey it. His only mission was to send Caroli to America. The person who performed this task was naturally the absolute confidant of Admiral Anton House. His orders to Admiral Anton House will be carried out unconditionally. After sending Caroli away, Admiral Anton House breathed a sigh of relief. He knew that in the upcoming confrontation with the German navy, the possibility of the Austro-Hungarian navy's failure was very high. The Austro-Hungarian navy could fail and be wiped out by Germany. However, Caroli must arrive in the United States safely. In this way, they will have hope in the future. The Austro-Hungarian Empire will also have the possibility of restoration. Caroli fell into a coma for 2 full days. When he woke up, he found that he was not on the battleship Austro-Hungarian Monarch, but on a light cruiser. Caroli knew immediately what was going on. At this moment, the light cruiser has sailed out of the Gulf of Aden and entered the vast Indian Ocean. After all, a light cruiser is capable of sailing at speeds above 25 knots. In order to be able to reach the United States, Admiral Anton House even prepared sufficient fuel on the light cruiser. Oil drums filled with heavy oil are placed almost everywhere on the battleship, where things can be placed. In this way, the endurance of the light cruiser will be further improved. Even if it goes around more than half of the Earth, there will be no problem. Caroli asked the light cruiser to return to join the main fleet. As the Emperor of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, he could no longer run away. Even if he died, he would die with the naval fleet loyal to him. However, it was rejected. Even after being severely slapped several times by Caroli, the captain of the light cruiser remained unmoved. Under such circumstances, Caroli had to give up. He had to think that all of this was arranged by Admiral Anton House. This also made him even more moved by his loyalty to Admiral Anton House. The only thing he can do is to do his best to promote cooperation with the Americans after arriving in the United States, so that one day he can restore the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Only in this way can he be worthy of the sacrifices of Admiral Anton House and others. At the same time, Caroline kept praying to God, praying that the Austro-Hungarian Navy would escape this time. Admiral Anton House continued to lead the Austro-Hungarian Navy and sailed according to the scheduled route, although he knew that the possibility of escaping the pursuit of the German Navy was very small. However, he still had such an extravagant hope in his heart, hoping that God would bless them. Admiral Anton House knew that once they were caught up by the German Navy, they would probably die. Only by entering the Atlantic Ocean and then getting rid of the pursuit of the German Navy is the only chance of survival. However, the extravagant hope of Admiral Anton House is obviously impossible to succeed. The combined fleet of the German Navy is still approaching them at high speed. On the morning of February 8th, the Austro-Hungarian Navy entered the Gulf of Aden through the Mandeb Strait. At this moment, the combined fleet of the German Navy is less than 200 kilometers away from the Austro-Hungarian Navy. In other words, according to the current speed of both sides, it only takes one day for the German Navy's combined fleet to catch up with the Austro-Hungarian Navy. Even the seaplanes released by the cruisers of the German Navy have been able to fly over the heads of the Austro-Hungarian Navy for reconnaissance. The German Navy was not far behind them, which made everyone, including Admiral Anton House, a little nervous. After all, the German Navy is the most powerful navy in the world. That puts the British Navy on the ground. Although the Austro-Hungarian Navy possessed a number of powerful capital ships through construction and purchase, however, the foundation is still too weak compared to the German Navy. It is very difficult to defeat the German Navy, and the probability is almost equal to 0. At the same time, Admiral Hipper, commander of the German Navy's combined fleet, also issued an order for the fleet to prepare for combat. They chased all the way from Gibraltar to the Gulf of Aden in order to kill the Austro-Hungarian Navy. Otherwise, this fleet marathon would be in vain. Although, with the strength of the combined fleet of the German Navy, it will be a certainty to solve the Austro-Hungarian Navy. However, in order to avoid capsizing in the gutter, the United Fleet still has to go all out. On the morning of February 9th, the combined German Navy fleet caught up with the Austro-Hungarian Navy in the waters 100 kilometers east of Socotra Island. This unavoidable confrontation between the navies of the two countries has officially begun. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.